Welcome, Mr. Rivir. Welcome to the show. Can you just say anything just to make sure you sound good on my OBS?
Feels good to be here behind the suit.
Amazing.
Represent Montreal.
So, yo, my name is Holden Stephan Roy. Uh, Mr. Rivir is here with me today. This is the show Bridge the Gap on the Behind That Suit. Lots of names. It's all good. What's important is that Bridge the Gap is the show where we take very interesting people such as yourself and we walk through your life and we extract some knowledge nuggets, some just things we can learn and apply to our reality in order to be better. Plus, get to know you a little bit better. It's meant to be like unlike all the other things you've ever interviewed with or shall interview with again, and it's just meant to be like a thing. Now, before we really get into the interview, can you just quickly introduce yourself, who you are, and where you're born? Not necessarily all the journey, just where you were born, your early years happened.
So, my father, he's a rabbi. So, I growing up, I kind of traveled with wherever he went. Before I was born, he was rabbi in Vancouver and Miami, and then along his journey, he was the rabbi in Sweden. So I was born in Gothenburg, Sweden, and
Fascinating.
that's where I spent the first 3.5 years of my life.
That's amazing. It's a perfect. That's perfect. That's what we needed to get started. And
Yeah.
just what do you do today? Just as a quick summary for the people to know who you are a little bit, just like the snapshot.
So yeah, now I'm kind of following in my father's footsteps as I'm in school to learn to be a rabbi. I finished my master's last year in Jewish studies, and I'm starting a master's next year in Jewish education, and also I'm in rabbinic school. So I'm kind of like merging the academic Jewish world with the rabbinic Jewish world with pedagogy,
We're
and then
gonna
kind of
go
trying to
into what
bridge
all
all.
that means after. So you're doing the rabbi thing, and you make music.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I was trying to get to is merge all of those worlds with my creative spirit and like trying to use art and music as pedagogy, to use art and music as a tool for homiletics, for inspiring people, which music does that anyway. So I'm just kind of converging two languages that I've learned in order to
Fantastic.
that path.
So we're gonna understand what all that means in a while, and in the meantime, that was like the little trailer of what you're gonna figure out what all that means at the end.
Dun, dun, dun.
But I do have my little token first question I like to ask everybody because it sets off the tone, and we'll put you back into being in Sweden from what you can remember then. So it's gonna be fucking wonderful. So it's a bit of a story. When it lands, you can just kind of take it away and answer, and we'll evolve the story as it goes because we're gonna go in a lot of detail. So it starts with my girlfriend, and she's washing the dishes, and she's playing that Black Eyed Peas song. That I got a feeling. Ooh, and she's vibing and she's doing her thing. She's dancing, and I started thinking about this song, right? Because this song is somehow now in this sphere of dishes music, of exercise music, activity. You know, you're getting yourself pumped up music, and it's like it's probably always what the song's been, but if we think about it, something like 10 years ago, people were all up in these clubs and bars dancing real drunk to this song. And the whole purpose and vibe of that song, it was club music. But it is now exercise and chores music. And that made me think about music and just how, over the course of like a decade, the vibe of a song can change so much and become something completely different. It's not static, it's just so very alive. Which got me thinking about all the modern club songs today, all the Cardi B's and stuff, and how that's going to end up being kind of like future chores music and exercise music down the line, which is going to be a whole trip. That's a future problem. But in the meantime, if we can know that music is kind of on this journey that it's on within the realms of each of the songs, and then we think about ourselves as artists, that means we have our own musical journeys that we all go on. And as we do these journeys and we talk about them, typically we start in that more prepubescent adolescent phase when we attach ourselves to music via identities and we start caring about artists and acts and whatnot. But that's not really at all where our musical journeys start in like the least. they really start as early as we can remember, such as like when you're 3.5 years old in another place, or myself, I can remember being like 3 or 4 years old, and my dad's got these like gray boxes attached together with like the amp and the fucking radio and the tape deck and the disc, and they would be going to speakers, and he would run these Led Zeppelin tapes, and at nighttime it would be the radio with the 90s techno music of Montreal, and then my mom would have discos and musicals and stuff I didn't care about as much. And then, at Christmas time we would have this like basically these like techno remixes of Christmas songs that would get played, and just this everywhere in life had these vibes with these different musics that would kind of create this landscape of what my memories were and who I was, then would go on to tie into who I am today. So I was hoping, Rivir, you could bring us back to being like 3.5 as early as you can remember, and walk us a little bit through what it sounded like to be you.
Right. Yeah. So I like that, just that thought of the state of music. It's almost like music when it goes on its first date. It's in the club, it's on the radio, and it's like in its shiny, polished state. But that moment when kind of like a relationship gets to chores and to the habitual day to day, when it takes on that transient state, that's how you know that you've kind of like, it's reached that iconic level. It's reached that place in your life where it has like its magmatic undertone in which you can be drawn towards, and you can say, oh, this is music that speaks the language that I've been brought up in. This is the language that plays the soundtrack of my life. So no, that's a very interesting point. And yeah, there was music constantly playing in my house, in the chores, in like just in the background. A lot of Israeli folk music, Jody Mitchell, music from I guess the 60s, Beatles, and yeah, that music had its first date when it was the voice of the revolution, the voice of Woodstock, the voice of kind of like of bringing about social change. And then it kind of cuddles its way into the household, where in the domestic sphere, where it's just it's the nostalgia of that age, of that era. So yeah, I think that's really interesting. And that
So hold up,
soundtrack,
you grew up to Jewish folk revolutionary music or Israeli
well,
folk revolutionary music? That was
a
like the
little bit that music, that kind of folk music from my grandfather was in the paramilitary, he was part of the Yishuv, which is kind of like in the 1920s, before Palestine Israel was like a country. It was under British mandate, and so he was living at that time, and he said like, we can work it out. I don't know if they were able to work it out, but like they didn't want the British kind of lording over them and controlling everything, and so he worked for a paramilitary that tried to get rid of the British in control. And then eventually there was kind of like two main movements within the Israeli camp. There was the Irgun, which his was like they were doing a lot of attacks against the British, very aggressive, and the other group was the Haganah, which was very diplomatic, trying to work with the British and negotiate. So he was a freedom fighter, like in that kind of revolutionary mindset. So yeah, definitely kind of that music, the music of the Palmach, those kind of like there was also kind of within that era, like a lot of it was like Israel was kind of at a time in like a communist era, where a lot of work music, we're gonna grow the land, those kinds of songs. So that, but not to say that the music that was playing in my house was solely that music. It was
no, but this
also,
is still fascinating. Like, don't
yeah.
get me wrong. Like, it's just super nifty. I'm just like, yo, this is a good history. Let's follow this. You're
But
making it
also,
super
like,
digestible.
at that time, there was also the revolutionary music in America and Vietnam and
Yeah.
all that music. So I think just the 50s, 60s, just the zeitgeist of the world was very, let's bring about social change, and so it's so fascinating, that first point that you meant, like, that I have a feeling like it's club music, but that's the role that music, and that kind of speaks about the kind of the tone of society at that time was like, let's celebrate, let's relish in the world that we've created, versus in the 60s there was a lot of unrest and a lot of people driving social change. So yeah, anyways.
No, it's amazing. So that's where you're like the beginning. But so your parents, so you grew up in a Jewish household, I'm gonna assume. So
Yeah.
is that like, do you believe that how tied into that is the music? Like, I know that every time I've gone to synagogue, they sing, like, and everybody knows the words to the songs. So like, as a young one, are you like taught to sing like right off the jump?
Definitely, like, um prayer is song, and like song, I mean, I associate music and song with kind of speaking the voice of your soul and really letting out like your raw feelings, and you can't express it in words, so you just express it in song. So that's the voice of prayer, and that 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 relationship to music is crystallized in the synagogue space. But I mean, I've always just been drawn to music. My aunt, she's a cantor, um, and I remember
Can
when
you
I
explain
was,
what a cantor is?
yeah, it's there's in the synagogue there's two main clergy members. There's the rabbi who preaches about like ideas from the core texts, from the biblical text, and tries to like make them relevant in today. And it's kind of like an inspirational talk that's their, not their main role, but one of the features of a rabbi. Also an individual who has a lot of knowledge to kind of like, when people have questions about Jewish legal code and stuff, there's multiple roles, but kind of it's like a figure who uses the text and translates the text into kind of inspiration for people and wisdom. And then the cantor is an individual it's just the music, and it's someone who's trained usually operatically or classically, and like when you go into classical cantorial, the history back into the like 1700s, 1800s, it's 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 a mixture of kind of Polish, Yiddish, kind of that style a lot, at least in the Eastern European core of Judaism. Um, but it's also, there's a lot of like just pure singing the words with tears in your eyes, and just crying in front of God as you sing. Um, so that my aunt, she's a cantor, and I remember I would just always, whatever was on the radio, like constantly just singing out, and it kind of got me into a little bit of trouble. So I would sing in the halls, I'd sing on the streets, and one time, like I was kind of just like bursting into song uh, in the halls, and one of the teachers said, "Shh, there's tests going on at this time. Like you can't be singing so loudly." And so I was kind of a little distraught, and I went home and I called up my aunt, and and I told her, what do you do when you have a melody in your heart and it has to come out? How do you express it? And in her aunt wisdom, she told me, you hum. So I kind of going back into my childhood, I've always been just, there's been melody that's been that fills my heart, and I've always just been drawn to song and music and melody, and
No, we're
using
not
that as
even done being young.
expression.
Trust. We're gonna get to all the drawn twos, and we're gonna go in more, because yo, That's what we're doing here. This is like your
Yeah,
Wikipedia page. This is like the
yeah.
early life section. So are you also involved in like dance of is that like another part of the just the culture too? Cuz I had like this is just me asking cuz I didn't have that kind of Jewish upbringing. Like my mom converted to Christianity before I'm born, but I'm technically Jewish, which is a whole different experience than growing up in the community and understanding all the nuances of it. Like I go to Jewish events for holidays and I sit there and I feel like a weirdo just listening to Hebrew, and I'm like, fair. This is a thing, and I missed it all. And so, is dancing a big part of it? Like being young and that.
Yeah. There are like several holidays where um the point of the holiday, there's like we just this past week there was a major holiday, which is the commemoration of when God gave the Torah down from heaven to the people. Um, and that's like one, and in that holiday, uh, the point of it is to just to study and to like to read the text, and there's like not much song, and like you study from like all night, and that's kind of how you engage with it. It's very like intellectually stimulating. And then there's another holiday uh, at kind of at the other extreme of the year that also commemorates like when God gave the people the Torah. And in that holiday, there's zero study. It's like you're supposed to get drunk and dance with the Torah, and it's like full activity. And so, like what I enjoy is that there's like lots of modalities of interacting in Judaism that allows for space for the creative pursuits, that allows space for the intellectual way of interacting with it. So from kind of like from the Jewish perspective, there's dance involved, but
How about the Revere perspective? Were you a dancer?
yeah. I mean, like I'd I'd I'd, I played basketball at Concordia, and like every like on the weekend or whatever, there would be like opportunities to dance, and like I would just go with my team and have like the best time. And they were always on the side like trying to look cool or whatever, and I was just in my own world dancing and having a good time. And I remember that also going back to like bar mitzvahs, because my father's a rabbi, so I'd be like the 4-year-old on the dance floor the whole time at the bar mitzvahs, just
Okay.
have like not a care in the world, not trying to perform for anyone or anything, just like, I mean,
So
that
how
same
many so
feeling.
how many bar mitzvahs did you go to?
You can quantify them because every bar mitzvah comes with like the kid has like a kippah,
Mm,
like a skull cap like this.
yeah.
So you can quantify them, and how many skull caps I have at my parents' home, just like boxes and boxes. It's
So like
so
really your whole childhood is one long party. Like there's a lot of
it was I have a feeling that was yeah. And I mean, so
I don't
music I
mean to
really
like diminish it, but like you got to go to tons of bar mitzvahs, which is just
yeah,
I've been to a few. It's basically singing and dancing for hours.
totally yeah. And I mean, the like when you're a kid and there's loud music and everyone's just having a good time, it leaves an impression on you where like I just associated music and dancing with bliss, and like kind of where like I couldn't control the melody that was inside me, just the rhythm of music. I was always like, you can catch me in Montreal dancing through the streets and singing, because just like it's it's entwined with my spirit.
I love it.
Yeah.
Super cool. So you basically where do you go after you leave? I think you said I forgot Sweden or Switzerland. I think it was one of those two. You said you were born in,
Yeah,
and I get
yeah, Sweden. um after Sweden, um my father had a synagogue in Toronto. It was a synagogue for like all of the members that established the synagogue were Holocaust survivors. And that was kind of like a very important thing for my father. His mother was a Holocaust survivor, and she was liberated in Sweden. So uh, like Sweden had a very important role in her life, and her father also. There was this Swedish diplomat that like she kind of went through the concentration camps and everything, but her father was able to escape before that, through a Swedish diplomat who saved him. So like Sweden in my grandmother's eyes was like paradise of this people who cared for the weak and like brought in refugees from the Holocaust, and she was rehabilitated there. And my father, she'd go to Israel. She met my grandfather, and then they'd come back to Sweden. My father was born in Sweden. Then they went like then my grandfather became a rabbi in Texas. Then my father so he went back to Sweden, and it was this like ideological. My grandfather, when he was a rabbi in Sweden, he was reconstituting the Holocaust survivor community and building up that community. And so then when he went to Texas. Then when my father went back, he felt like I need to come back to the Holocaust survivor community. I need to build up Sweden from this ideological perspective. So then when he went to Toronto, he went to like a synagogue that was built by Holocaust survivors, and that was, I mean, my mother also, she works at an elder care facility in Montreal, in Outremont, that's like also was made for Hasidic Holocaust survivors. So I mean, that's kind of like one of the through lines of like kind of what drew my father. Also, I guess the like economic situation of Sweden is like social democracy, and Canada also has those vibes of social democracy. So they didn't want to be in America.
Fair enough. I can empathize with that. Um, See, it's like as a rabbi, you get to travel to a lot of different places a lot easier. Like I don't understand how you just can up and go, and now you just go to another country.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of wild. He didn't speak Swedish. He he had to, like he was eventually by the end of it, he was there for 5 years. He was giving sermons in Swedish, and he was doing pastoral counseling for people in the community, all in Swedish. But like he had to learn that on the fly. So as far as the like logistics of it, I can't even imagine. That's wild. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of like one of the cool advantages that like I'm excited about eventually becoming a rabbi, is that um, Jewish communities all over the world, and like you can by being a rabbi of the community, you can kind of be welcomed into that world. So yeah, my father was looking at jobs in Japan, in like all over the world, just because like the Jewish texts are the same, and we speak the same, we sing the same tunes, and we speak the same language. But again, the music kind of like keeps us all intact. The tunes and the melodies and that history, it's all connected, like just through that culture. Yeah.
So you're saying that Judaism is able to effectively remain internationally cohesive. I've heard rabbis go as far as to say, for every time zone on Earth, candles get lit in at the same time or whatever, just stuff like that. Like just like the sequence. Like I've heard that kind of like boldness. Like you can go to any country and there's going to be a Jewish community. So you're saying that the cornerstone of this is honestly just that everybody has the same songs,
Well,
or a huge part of it.
like songs and culture, it's such an incredible experience, to go to like a foreign country. When I'd like travel with the basketball team, I just like I'd have to figure out, because sometimes they would try like on the Sabbath once a week. I don't do any work. I can't use electricity. There's like a lot of logistic challenges with that. Every single Friday night to Saturday night. And so my team, when I play basketball, we'd go to other countries, we'd go to other cities, and any city that I'd go to, I'd call up a rabbi in the city and say, it's like Wednesday night, I'm coming to your city, Friday morning. Do you have a place for me to stay? And he said, don't worry, there's someone in this community. Do you need food? completely like, yeah, that experience of, and when I go to their synagogue, or when I meet them, the tunes are the same. Like it's that there's this feeling of kind of like, I think in Quebec there's like that whole protecting French. I feel like kind of like that dream of like being able to go to any country in the world and people are speaking French and sharing and reading Simon de Saint-Exupéry, like all that kind of stuff. um, that experience of shared culture is something that's very interesting about Judaism, because we're not like a majority in the world. We're not, and by no stretch of the imagination is there like any kind of uh, um, deep importance of that culture outside of the Jewish community. Like um, Catholic history, I think, affects the Jewish history. But like, how much does Maimonides, this rabbi, in Spain in the 12th century, 12th, 13th century, what impact did he have on like Christian world or anything?
Right.
But like that shared history for me, it's like, wow, the shared history in the past, the shared history geographically, this kind of also ability to like bring in inclusivity to people from other cultures, like where there's this like syncretized insertions of uh, of Middle Eastern culture and of Asian culture. And just because like now kind of in the conversation a lot in Jewish circles is not like making sure that people don't come with assumptions of that like Jews of color don't have like Jewish backgrounds or anything like that. And it's like that's such a beautiful ability to like, there's shared culture and there's distinctive culture, and to be able to embrace both of those together, I think is a really cool thing. But we're talking about Judaism and stuff. I don't know if you want to get into more music, those types of
Honestly,
things.
it was just because it's your childhood, and it's
True.
basically
Yeah.
all tied into music in you. All of this shared cultural history of Jewish music
Yeah.
is. You made a Jewish album that we were just listening to.
Yeah. Yeah.
To me, I'm seeing them as one and the same in your journey with regards to like at least this phase of your life. This is what your dad was up to. You were involved in a bunch of bar mitzvahs that involved the shared culture. You did all of this different stuff, and it's like all what ended up kind of building it through. So usually, because of what we do, we just kind of go through your life, and then the music parts when you're doing end of the weeks. Well, that's later on in life. We're not there yet.
Right.
But
Yeah.
we get there, and then we're just talking about that because that's what you're up to or whatever. So like, when do you like? Are you like interested at that age then of like writing or pursuing music or reading like when you're young, or is this something that came like later on in life?
I mean, yeah. Like just the fabric of creativity is something that I draw back to from those years. I was like, I'd come up and like we'd have a guest over at our house, and it'd be like, let's tell a story together, and then he'd like start dictating my story of, and like that story that I'm thinking of right now is like pretty much just Power Rangers, but then like me telling him Power Rangers, but like that feeling of creativity and writing and like going back into my albums, I just have like hundreds of stories about a superhero who like uses his tzitzis, his it's kind of like a garment that Orthodox Jews wear, as like his cape, and like just my way of making sense of the world was through storytelling, through writing those stories, and then like that would evolve and emerge into songwriting. I was like really enamored
So
by.
so like, how long did you stay in Toronto for? Like, were you
I was in
like
Toronto for about 3 years, 3 4 years, 3 years. I
and
came to Montreal Like, 3 years. I came to Montreal when I was like 6.5.
And were you in Montreal for a while at that point?
Yeah, yeah. That's where most of my upbringing was. Yeah, yeah. The rest of my life, pretty much.
All right,
Um,
so let's say you're like, let's say, 10, 12-ish in Montreal. What part of Montreal did you settle in?
my father's synagogue is town of Mount Royal, um, just like kind of like a block away from Jean Talon and Lucerne. It's on Lucerne. Um, so, so yeah, uptown.
Respect. So you're up there. When did you first start to develop an appreciation for your own musical taste, which is a bit different than the culture and the stuff that surrounds you? Like, do you remember some of your first early like favorite songs that got you excited about music in a different kind of way?
Mm. So, in my pursuit of creativity, um, I I loved coming up with melodies and like in my synagogue, they'd have this song at the end, which always had the same tune, but like they'd have the children lead it. And so every time I'd come up and I'd make up a new tune to it, and it started becoming like this funny thing because people are like, "Oh wow, that's a really cool tune. Who taught it to you?" And it came from me spontaneously. So I developed a kind of through the pursuit of melody and tunes. Early on, I was like, I need to express creativity in whatever way, and I love music too. Um, I thought, okay, the pinnacle of creativity is Weird Al Yankovic, and and like parody art is genius because like you're able to sing amazingly and like take a whole other story that like uses elements of this song and like kind of, and also you don't have to be tied to a genre. You can go one song in rock, one song you can all of a sudden be in kind of like singing a song from a musical, and like there's no limits to it. And like yeah, I I really I liked uh all sorts of genres, kind of, yeah. Uh,
No,
and
but you said Weird Al Yankovic as your like first go-to, and that's like incredible to me. First of all, underrated artist. Weird Al Yankovic is in fact a genius. I got into him in high school. The polka shit blew my mind. That was like to me, in high school. The I don't remember what they're called, but like one of the particular polka things had like Last Resort by Papa Roach on it, and it just hearing Papa Roach repurposed with polka music was just like, how did he do that? How did he write a
yeah,
medley like that? Like,
yeah,
what? So I kind of
yeah.
actually get where you're coming from. It's just you're the first person I've talked to that brought him up first and then went straight to parody. Like, music's good, parody's better. Damn, that's a strong start to like get to so young.
I mean, yeah, it's like the music that my mother would play would always had an impression on me, and my uh, second oldest sister, she was into punk, and she was my idol of like what's cool, and any style that she would wear, everything that she would do, I always wanted to emulate. And so she would burn CDs and like Ramones and punk stuff, and just like all that world also to me was emblematic of like what is great music. Whatever came from her iTunes, from her Napster accounts, Kaza.
That's crazy. So what I'm hearing is by the time you're like 12, let's say, you're
Yeah,
you've already got performing experience, right? This is why we did the whole Jewish thing. To get to this moment where we can establish that by 12 you're already performing heavy in an environment that has a lot of performance elements in it, right? A lot of opportunity to see parties in action, which is live events, because you do throw events today, right? So yeah,
yeah,
that bar mitzvah shit ties into probably your love and ability to get events popping. Um,
totally.
and then you're already maybe not songwriting per se, but practicing elements of freestyling even off the dome with your
Mm,
melodies that you're dropping. And I I recently had a little chit chat with somebody that said Rivir would go toe to toe with anybody in a freestyle contest, and I put up my guy against Rivir. But you were brought up as one of two people to go at it like that. So I mean, see you
Yeah,
practicing that at like a young age in the synagogues, giving that opportunity to do it, and people
yeah,
kind of getting excited for it before
yeah.
you even started doing anything. That's huge. That's why we do all this shit.
No, so I mean, creativity is was so important. So so when I would listen to Weird Al Yankovic, it was like I need to make parodies now. I like when I and I mean I was constantly for my assignments in class, my teachers would have like, okay, you can do a creative component, and then I'd like write a whole rock opera about the about the book that I made. And I mean, it was raw because like, I mean, whatever came from my pen, like I would just like, okay, this is
Would
the
you like
melody. This
perform this?
I'd perform the whole rock opera with like the kids kind of like, what's going on? Like I thought this was like a book report. But like, so I mean, I was constantly writing and making songs, and like for me it was always just what is an art form that can allow kind of expression of, I mean, I was enamored by multiple forms of creativity. There's melody, there's storytelling, there's rhyme schemes, there's puns and like wittiness, and like uh, and maybe I'm missing a few elements of songs in general, but like for me, finding like ways to combine all of those creativities and like finding a space for it to be unleashed where I could just let my mind roam in different directions was a necessity. It was a life force for me. So that I was like, okay, parody is the ultimate form of creativity. That's what I'm doing. I remember I was very into uh, uh, like comics, just what are they called? Uh, anyway, just one image and there's
Right,
a
right,
pun involved.
right,
You
right.
see them, those types of things. I love them because I was able to draw and use that form of creativity along with
Hold on,
coming up
you've
with
also
a
been
great,
drawing this whole time. You're able to draw.
yeah, and like, but like, just all in the name of creativity, art, expression, and allowing myself to just express through puns, through jokes, through music, through melody, all of those things. And eventually I was the what made the most sense is the ultimate form of creativity was when I turned on Eminem, and I was this is he packs in so many words, and he has space for him to just come up with amazing melodies, and then the beats are this own form of creativity of sampling of and genre bending, where parodies you're able to genre bend, and and you can be in different art forms. Hip hop and rap had that same element to it, where, oh, this is a Latin beat, this is, whatever the style is, you can have those clashes, and it's not even a clash, it's just its own form of expression. So that kind of like, eventually I was trying to one up what's a more creative form of expression, and eventually I'd be drawn to hip hop.
So when did you discover Eminem and go on this like process of going beyond Weird Al Yankovic and parody to oh shit, hip hop's better? Not to say better.
Yeah, I was around 13, 13, 14. And that like, so as soon as I started listening to hip hop, as soon as
How did you encounter Eminem? I mean, if you're at that age, I guess it's high school.
yeah, I mean, he's also on the radio. He's also
Right,
um
right. He was huge back then.
yeah, and to encounter something that was so charged with creativity, so emotional, also like being able to pack so much in such like a contained space, felt that totally enamored me. I was infatuated by the potential of it. And as soon as I was listening, I was writing. As soon as like for me, it was never enough of consuming really great lines and creative, like it was always, I found a space that I can then channel for my own creativity.
Fair enough. What high school did you go to?
Hebrew Academy in
Straight
Hudson
up.
Valley.
I know Hebrew Academy. So I went to Wager, and Wager and Hebrew Academy shared resources at one point. I'm not.
Uh-huh.
No, it was Bialik that shared. Anyway, I just know Hebrew Academy because I was in Costa Rica. I know all these schools, but that's fresh. So was hip hop big in your school? Like, were a lot of people fucking with it?
Yeah, I mean that's also just kind of like
That
a
answer is
necessary.
not uniformly yes. It is so random when I ask that.
Really?
Yeah,
Because
depending on your school. Some schools loved hip hop. Some schools just didn't fuck with hip hop. It's just black and white like that. Up until like really the YouTube takeover, and not the early part, like nowadays times when it's like trending. Until then, yeah, it required people at the school to like it in order for people to like it, kind of thing.
yeah, I mean, in my world, it was that was also synonymous with cool. So it kind of goes both ways. Where I was looking towards my sister, and whatever music came from her was cool, and I wanted to do it. But it was this perfect pairing where it was both cool and it was this incredible form of creativity that not only was it in the words and in the storytelling and all of those like amazing elements, but hip hop had its own culture and dance and music. Like it was so layered that I could just dive into it and endlessly immerse myself and bask in other people's creativity, how other people are lauded for their creativity in a way that inspired me to be, oh my gosh, this is a world that I want to be a part of because I value creativity, and hopefully other people can value my appreciation for it.
That's a really good answer. So basically, my next question is, so you're in Hebrew Academy. You're already practicing your game. Are you like freestyling? Are you songwriting? And are you like doing this in public, or is this just like a private thing?
Well, the public aspect of it, I mean, I guess like yeah, it makes more sense with that. But I was always performing. We'd have at the Sabbath meal, we'd have guests over every week, and I was always whatever song I was writing or whatever story I was writing. My father would always be, "Dear, go up, sing your new songs." Like, and I was always performing in the house environment, in the synagogue. I was performing. For me, that went hand in hand, and then as I would work on new ideas, new projects, I would incorporate those into my performances. So I remember there was like a choir that came to my father's shul, and then I just written like one of my first rap songs, and like my father, Dvir will perform his new song, and that was such an intense feeling of, oh wow, hit, like I could do this with hip hop in this way that like that reaches people. And I mean, music in general reaches people, but
Yo, but that's
there's
big
something
though.
about the rhythmic aspect of hip hop where there's an impressive factor. You can still perform when it's just melodic, but like it really needs instrumentals and stuff a lot of the time. But with hip hop, because the words hit its own rhythm, I was able to do that performance, and like people could hear the rhythm of it because there weren't those awkward pauses of when you sing a song and you're like waiting for like 5 seconds to hit the next the next bar. Yeah.
You know why that's also big? That's a great point you made. I'm sure other people would debate it. I'm not going to get into songwriting rules like that. But when I met you, you were like, I want to use my music to educate and to like push my message. Every one of your songs is doing just that. But really, think back to what you just said. Now, you're in this environment, you're in the synagogue, you have this choir, and you've just written a rap song, and you realize you can bring rap to your community right there
Yeah.
because it gives you that opportunity, which effectively is what you are. It's like the birth of the like the Rivir hip hop version of you today. Kind of ties into like that moment almost.
Origin story. Da, da, da.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. How old were you when that happened? Like 13, 14 ish?
Yeah, just around that age. And it was, yeah, it was very interesting also because um, I mean my like first raps were were listening to hip hop, listening, and then I'd like come up with like 50 rhymes to one word and just rhyme down the page. And like it was very I didn't have a sense of bar structure or anything like that. It was just, wow, how many multi-syllabic rhymes can I string together nonsensically? um, and that song that I performed was a moment where I toned down on the complexity of it, and I just told like a biblical story. And that choir was I don't know if you know Reverend Gray. He's um, he's like very important in the Montreal Black community, basketball community, and so like it was with his choir. I that the song that I had made was about kind of the chorus of it brought kind of an old black choir song like "Oh down Moses, let my people go." So like I was able to merge those worlds together with that, and then also it was just this moment where instead of trying to impress people with the rhymes or the wittiness, I was just telling a story, and that was such an amazing moment for me in being able to use music intentionally and with like a utilitarian end goal. And so yeah, that was a great moment also, um, where I felt, oh, there's actually there's a platform for it. Going back to what we were saying at the beginning, you have purpose for music. You have the club song where it's about the vibe, or you have the hippie music where it's about a social cause. And then yeah, for me, up until that point, hip hop was an Olympics. It was using verbal gymnastics in a way to stretch words and meaning in fun frivolity. But that was a moment when I realized it doesn't have to just be limited to that. And furthermore, I can I can use it not just, I mean, like a lot of hip hop, I had dissonance with it because, wow, this is incredible, incredible wordplay. This is incredible ideas, but the content uh, was aggressive. The content was violent or portraying a lifestyle that wasn't my own, and I felt, I do I emulate the form and then shift it into kind of like my own world, or do I like what do I do with this dissonance that had built up? And so that, for me, that was also a moment where I said, I can I can allow other people to tell their life stories, and and not feel like I need to appropriate another person's life in order to fit into the hip hop world. But I can tell my own life story, and just really appreciate hip hop culture, um, without feeling like I'm stomping on someone else's territory, or or adopting uh, another history that isn't my own, but valuing it and also seeing shared elements of it. Where does that deep emotional strife come from, and there are so many elements of that um, in in Jewish history, in my grandmother's Holocaust story. In some of my songs, telling my grandmother's Holocaust story is feels like hip hop. It's not the it's not it's I never chopped. I never, that wasn't part of my story, but but being part of like an oppressed people, and kind of um, being subjugated for your identity without any consent towards allowing someone else to demonize, belittle, and dehumanize. That experience is a shared experience, and that anger, that disappointment in society, all of those emotions define hip hop. That pain, that the scar tissue of that is on the needle of every vinyl.
Yeah, that was big. That was a good answer. I like that a lot. I like the fact that, like, how old were you when you decided I don't want to appropriate a culture and I need to not do that?
I mean, it was a continuous struggle, especially like we're not there yet in the story, but like as I would go into the rap battle culture, it started being you need to get daps for the status quo, for kind of like fitting within the norms, or at least that was the impression, and that made things even more challenging
All right, we'll
because
definitely get to that. That sounds like fair enough. So, but already, I just want to say, like, you're a very impressive person. In terms of just like the youth side of it, the young part below youth, because like talk to a lot of people, like myself too. Like it wasn't that impressive until maybe high school, and it starts to pick up, and then it doesn't really start to pick up till like later on. And your shit's like, yeah. By the time I'm 13, I'm already, dropping rap songs at the synagogue, discovering my brand and an identity, my ability to leverage music for you to like. You're 13. I mean, I know you become a man, but like that's taken it to a big level in like fucking this era.
it's my bar mitzvah.
Um, but like I mean that sincerely, like because it is a really like impressive backstory to you in terms of why I was listening to the versatility in the tracks on your project, and it is really well made. It has a lot of pristine in it, a lot of like NF level of detail. I don't know how else to put it. That level of combing over every four bars and making sure it's all like nice and versatile and doing what you want to do with it. But a
Thank you.
lot of people don't go that route for a lot of different reasons. But I guess if you're like just practicing melodies and flows off forever, like it's not the same struggle that other people may have, regardless. Because speed is a very interesting thing. The longer you do this shit, the faster you get at being able to do more complex things. That is the big facts of it. Being in
Right,
music over time just means you're faster.
right,
Better or
right,
worse is all subjective, but whatever you do, you get faster at doing it. So it's
right.
super nifty to see like how you're able to create multiple. And you said it's just as a spoiler, a 48 or something like ridiculous track project split into multiple parts. Like we're not talking about like a small thing. So we were just looking at the first part of it, and so
Right.
it's like, how do you get to that point? And then you're doing
Right.
it for your community. Then you're doing it for all this other shit. So we're gonna get to there, of course, but so we tie that into here, but it's just built into you from the beginning. So you're in Hebrew Academy. Are there a lot of like variety shows and things like that happen?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in school we had variety shows. Color War is this. Do you know Color War? It's kind
Uh,
of like in camps
Maybe.
they have Color War a lot, where they split the camp up into two big teams and just all sorts of competitions. And it's really they did this every year in my high school. It was such a cool thing because 11 it completely is an equalizer of all levels. 11th graders are like working with seventh graders on music and on skits and jokes and developing a lot of like internal internal jokes, and that school culture really developed through Color War. And so in Color War, in variety shows, in those types of things. And also I started there were these performers in my school that they would go out, and I tried to work with them a little bit. I was always looking for music partners and finding people who appreciate it as much as me, or who have other talents that like we could collaborate. And so yeah, in high school I was sending out flares left and right, like kind of like SOS, but not SOS, like here I am, listen to me. And I just, and all of those flares were just trying to like exude my own internal flair, and use that as fuel to kind of motivate me to keep making music, but also just that collaborative aspect. That's something that I love about music. Also, I just love it so much in so many different ways. But with music, when you're able to collaborate with someone, you're able to meet them, like meet their soul and meet their spirit in a way that you really get to know someone on a much closer level. And that social dynamic of sharing in creativity, listening to a beat and hearing completely different things, and then like having two different verses where you're like, oh, that's what you heard in that verse. That's the beat that you were accentuating. That's the contour that really spiked your interest. And hearing that in someone else, I love that. And I was constantly looking for people to make music with, and yeah, it became also this avenue with between playing basketball and with music. I just meet a whole host of people where we connect through Judaism, or we connect through basketball, or we connect, and all of these connection points with people really helped build me up socially. And really I felt like in Montreal I feel so at home because I'm part of all of these different communities.
So would you go to like all of those? Because I went to Wigger right before it closed,
Yeah.
and it had the basketball team, and they would play Hebrew Academy. I remember that.
Yeah.
And I would see like they would all like, go on these weekends and things like that. Would you participate in all of these high school bagel weekend tournaments and things like of this variety?
Yeah. I mean, I played for high school. I played for Rivir Academy, but I also played inner city Dawson community. So
I'm not sure what that is. What is the inner city Dawson community?
There's kind of like there's the school league, and you play between the schools, and then it's a little bit of a better league where Park Extensions plays against Dawson, and kind of the different regions of Montreal, and going out into Hull, Quebec, West Island, Sun Youth. Those are kind of like some of the main teams. So like in that world, I'd meet a lot of people from Wager, and yeah, definitely go to AAU tournaments in the summers and stuff. It was a blast, and then in all of those environments, it was a stripe on my suit that like, oh you freestyle, oh you rap, oh let's rap battle on the bus. That became a bit of social cachet to work on that. And also in those tournaments, because of the Sabbath, because I'd have to walk long distances, on the Sabbath I can't drive a car or anything, so I'd walk, and I'd walk 12 hours, 18 hours, 16, whatever, like just long walks. How did I entertain myself? Freestyle, sing, rap, like, so that was also definitely a way that I developed my inner rhythm. All those things were it was entertaining. It was so much fun. And then like going to the game, I'd be like, oh, Jordan Aquino, he's a keynote speaker. You know, I'm thinking about like stuff that I can like slip into the rap battles with my teammates, or you know, that became, because of the social cachet that it came with. I would like have subjects that would go through my mind, or in rap battles there's this like idea of categories. Um, sorry, it's called schemes,
Yeah.
where you have different categories that you work through, and you try and like you rhyme it all the way through, but you go through 12 different laundry detergents while you're rhyming about how this person doesn't wash his clothes, or, you know, whatever, right? And then they're like, wait, slow it down, I just dissed you. And then they'll go through like 12 different, like I said, you wake up at dawn, and then what do you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, on those journeys, I'd like, I just start breaking down, oh, what's a scheme that I could come up with? What's a clever line? And yeah, I'd in those, basketball helped, definitely helped mold my music also.
So you were
I mean,
battling on the bus the whole way through this too.
that's actually, you know, Makeway Studios. So when I was on the bus going to school, I mean, I was freestyling, I was rapping, it just started becoming this habit of just as like when I was young, I would be singing melodies, and I still, I jump between singing melodies and dancing and working on my you know, tectonique, and then going into beatboxing, and then going into to freestyle. Like I just jump around between these different mediums. So I was freestyling on the bus, and then all of a sudden, Brandon, uh, Anu Buds, just comes up right next to me and starts like starts going back and forth, and we start splitting like 2 bars, 2 bars, 2 bars, and and I was like, oh wow, this is so cool. Afterwards, like, oh, you're really talented. Come by my studio in my basement. And this was like back when he was. I mean, I was probably like 15 at that time. So he's like, I think he's like a year or two older than me. So he's probably like 17. And that I didn't like, at the time, I didn't like take him on his invitation. There was another studio that I would go to.
Okay, what other
Uh,
studio would you go to? Were you make okay? So I forgot to ask. Were you like releasing music this whole time?
well, so we could talk. Yeah, I'll just finish the story and then I'll answer that. So I like I didn't, but I kept him kind of like on my purview, and thinking about, oh, Anu Buzz, and then eventually like I'd come back to him, and it's so cool because he's like this amazing producer now for the city of Montreal, and I have an affinity for an individual who's part of the Jewish community, and so it feels really cool that we shared this moment together, both in very early stages of our careers, and saw the potential in the musicality of the other, and in the appreciation of freestyle, and later on in life, our paths would cross. And actually, well, we could say that for later. But anyway, I'll go back to your question about what was your question?
Well, you said there's another studio, which reminded me. I didn't
Oh yeah,
ask if during this process have you been recording and releasing music.
yeah. So I started making, like in high school. I was like, oh, you have rap crews and stuff, and so I started making songs about and like the fantasy of like how we would take it would kind of build, and I was always thinking branding or where opportunities to perform, and so I started like building out a concert idea for Israel Independence Day, which is like a rally that I think like 10,000 Jews in Montreal go to each year. And I was like, that's I'm gonna make a lot of songs about Israel, particular about Israel, so that I can perform at the Israel, like at the rally, and and so I started making those songs. But like I was constantly thinking of different
Did you
projects,
end
different
up
ideas.
performing at the rally?
So it fell through, and like it's, I mean, it's disappointing, but just the kind of that like writing songs with an intention in mind, with with a goal, like who are people that I can collaborate with in order to put it on. I was also, I was on the organizing committee in the 7th grade for like, what do kids want to see at the rally? And I was like, people want like modern music. And they're like, oh, let's write that down. So then I remember like when I started making hip hop, like 8th, 9th grade, I was like, oh, that could be me who brings that element to the rally. But no, anyway, that didn't work out. But that was when I started like branding my music towards Jewish content. And my father, he has a radio show called like it's every week he would do like a brief sermon, and it was called like Wild Torah with a mild Masorah, which means like crazy like ideas about the Torah, but from a tradition that might be more mild. Anyway, he had this show, and so I came up with an idea of each week there's a story in the Torah that's read at the synagogue, and they break the Torah up into like 48 parts. And so on my father's show, I came up with this idea to like make one for each one. And my father was like, oh, wow, yeah, I'll get you on the show and like you can perform your song. So that was like a really cool moment when I was able to release one of my first songs. I made the beat, and it was very rugged. It was just like simple chords, and I'd been writing a lot of music, but not to any beats at that time. So that was like a really interesting moment. But so that was like a place where I performed. I was making music with the high school group, and with the high school group, the music that I was making was also primed towards like Jewish subjects, where I would take a different idea of like kind of just an esoteric rabbinic text and then illuminate it into modern ideas. But like very, very simplified, nothing too like advanced or complicated, but like my mind was geared in that direction. And then I don't know if you know epic rap battles of history.
Yes.
So when I started seeing epic rap battles of history, then I was like, oh my gosh, I got to do this with the Bible. And so I started making Bible rap battles, and I did like between Moses and Pharaoh, and I did between all like different characters. And so that was like a series that I started developing, where I was like, oh wow, this is so niche, but for everyone that I show within the Jewish niche, they're like, this is so cool. So
I mean,
that
I was
was
just going. That was just so cool at like a conceptual level. Like, I think what's brilliant about your mind, just in general, is you see something you like, and the first thing you want to do is emulate it and find a way to make it your own and improve upon it in a sense.
Yeah.
You're like, epic rap battles of history is cool, but let's be real. Sometimes they would pick some corny ones. Like, it's not so much that they were bad battles. It's just like, yeah, I don't care about either. I don't even know who these people are, and then it wouldn't be as
Yeah.
like fun to watch. So to solve that problem, Rivir is like, fuck that. I control it all now. I'll make every episode blast.
Right. I mean, like I was in Jewish day school. We have 13 classes a week, and 7 of them are like variants of Jewish subjects. So those like my mind's constantly making connections with things, and it was the creative stuff needed the like the intellectual world needed this creative funnel. And so it was also just this opportunity, like those esoteric rabbinic texts were what I just learned that week. I learned that rabbinic
No,
text. I
but
was like, let me
like,
talk
yo,
about
that's
it.
like gotta have a powerful statement for alternative education if you think about it, right?
Right.
Instead of testing, make kids write songs.
I mean,
I guarantee you,
yeah.
kids will retain more information.
Even in CJEP, I was like, my final, I had a like uh, at Dawson when I had a final where the whole thing was like a 15-minute, 12-minute freestyle about. It was supposed to be like tell like an argument and kind of a go back and forth. and it was a 13-minute freestyle of called "What We Can Reap from Rap," and that was just my final for that class. Was let me talk about the dissonance that I have between my relationship to hip hop, and say, wow, hip hop is the most creative art form, but it's so challenging for me because of the homophobia and the violence and like gang culture that I don't that feels like it has negative impacts in society. Those type drug culture, and so like those things were things that like I didn't feel connected to, and then I used my assignment. I used music, and I just like wrote like that 13-minute song. And like in university, I had like a philosophy class, a political theory philosophy class, and we had to like write a St. Thomas Aquinas disputation. But instead of that, I wrote my own relationship with basketball and feeling like I've given my life to basketball, and all of these years of working towards something that isn't isn't fruitful towards like a usable skill set. Like all of the hours that I'm in the gym shooting, I'm not transferring that to my public speaking. I'm not transferring that to other things. And then the whole first half of that song, it's like a 20-minute song going in the form of a Thomastic disputation, where like the whole beginning is like, this is useless. And there's like all of these, it's just glorification, deification of these individuals who are freakish athletes to begin with, and kind of like in an embittered state. And then this flip of it is, no, there's all of this incredible civil societal growth that happens in the grassroots and opportunities. And to be bitter about the deification of these individuals, no, you're providing individuals who didn't have opportunities a platform that they can use this social elevation in order to tell like great messages. And then I like cite LeBron James and all of his work in the Black Lives Matters movement and everything. And so kind of like, anyways, I got on a little bit of a tangent, sorry. But
That's what this
the point
is.
was, the whole thing is one big tangent, a tangent nugget.
Yeah,
But
it's great. You're crushing.
the idea of it is that, yeah, I have school assignments, I have book reports that I have to do. It's
Yeah, but
going
like
into
your
song.
memory is pretty impeccable, right? So like maybe that's connected to stuff, but like I know for a fact that like school's kind of not good at testing and assignments. Like they're boring as fuck. But like when you can
Right,
find a way to make it litty, and like I don't know, maybe it's not write a song. Imagine you had to draw a painting that you could then explain to your class that represented
right,
some subject or core theme that you had learned.
right,
Like Revere's inventing like ways that I bet you know these stories, a bunch of them to this day, just because you had to
right,
write it. But then also, like right now, if you look at the way things work, there is a lot of value in a frequency of release. It doesn't have to be like songs, but you have to be doing something frequently,
yeah,
whether it's the Insta, whether it's something, whatever, just to have like this level of activity. People can disagree with that all you want, but in general, for most people trying to achieve something, if you look at a social media marketing 101, you need a calendar of constant. And that's
right,
like, so before you even finished high school, you linked up with your dad, which I mean, you lived with him, whatever, you linked up with him, but like he provides it as opportunity to, which is really big ups to your dad, right? Because a lot of parents
yeah,
could have been like, "Nah, fuck you, you're not doing this. You're not
right,
coming on my radio show with your fucking young people shit." Instead, he encouraged you, and you.
right, yeah,
But on the other hand, you did have a bless ass concept to like reinforce what he's doing, right? It wasn't just
right,
random. And then you
right.
still created this challenge. You made your own beats the whole way through, or whatever. I don't know. Did you, or were you like making beats that whole
And
time?
it was it was like dun, 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 and I'd like beatbox in the background.
That was
But
actually
like
pretty good though.
very simple, whatever. But like using the MIDI keys of my keyboard in GarageBand, so basic. But No, that was like a great learning experience because up until that point, I'd be making these rap battles, these Bible rap battles without a beat in the background, and for me that was a big learning curve of that I'd have the bar in my head, but to fit it to a beat, it needs to complement, and yeah, in my music development, it became I don't know, it's something that I listen to the beat first and find the rhythm inside of it, find the flows, and then come to the song. It's the complete opposite. Where when I'd be making in my synagogue, the that song that I would sing at the end, I'd be making up the melody that it would never be structured in bars that are like that fit the song properly. It would just be, this is the melody that's in that I hear, and I'm using that melody and forming it to this performance that I'm having. And so that structure, that pairing of freedom and looseness with structure was a very important development in my music. So even though it was very rudimentary and it was just basic keys, that was like a first step in developing that.
I like what you said though about
Yeah.
I had a whole conversation today, even it comes up a lot about flow and delivery and pocket.
Mm,
Pocket is the current buzzword of the this conversation because we've hit that
yeah.
point. Um, but it's almost like that part where you listen to the beat first. Like I'm like, yo, I do that. That makes sense to me
Right.
because
Right.
like it's songwriting. It's not rapping. Rapping. Like rapping is a
Right.
vocal tool that you can use in songwriting, and in order to songwrite effectively, you kind of need to know what's coming a little bit. Like you can
Right.
freestyle a song,
Right. Yeah.
but that's not necessarily the same thing as like trying to create that like product that you're trying to use as a vehicle to convey the particular message as effectively as possible. So I
Yeah.
really like what you had to say about just almost like meeting the beat, like understanding the beat and then merging with it in the way like that makes the most sense for it, which is also something that forced you to adapt and level up. Again, we're not even done high school and you're already producing beats, writing jokes, playing basketball. Your songs are being aired on this radio. You performed a whole bunch. That's quite a lot so far. We're not done high school. That's pretty fucking
Yeah.
incredible, dude.
No, totally. And yeah, like not to like, but like very much in my own creative process, like today is uh, just through reference tracks. And like I hear in Kanye sometimes like he has unreleased demos. He's just hitting those reference tracks where he's finding the melody. Like the whole Scoop Diddy Doop, that song was originally just a reference track that
It's
he was
really
using it.
great.
It's legendary. But no, like I mean that creative process really resonates with me right now, which um, it's very easy for me now to kind of find a catchy melody in a beat because I had all that training of just thinking of catchy melodies from like my childhood. That was what I liked, and I was very eager to do that. But then it wasn't grounded with beats. So now, like all that prior training has helped in this like second evolution. I mean, second evolution. This is like 10 years ago, but
I mean,
yeah,
if you're like 10 years into your career 10 years ago, then it's fair enough to call it a second evolution. I mean, shit, like, it is your story. This is what happened to you. I mean, we're an hour and like 20 in, and yes, we talked about Judaism a lot, but shit, that was just the context to explain why, like, you're doing performances at choirs and radio shows so much and why the Jewish matters. And so, like, yo, we're not done high school, is what I'm saying. That's pretty, like, you did a lot before you were done then. So
right.
I'm impressed by that. I don't know how much more happens during high school, but like shit, you're just so sequential with it. So like, I don't know what comes after the radio opportunities. So you can go at that point then.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess probably then like going to the Dawson years, I was in such like an insulated world, and it was it was amazing. Well, actually, no. So in high school, going kind of towards the end of high school, like 10th grade, that's when I found battle rap. And that was like a very important.
How did you find battle rap? I would love to know that, just given what I'm doing with the battle rappers.
Right. Yeah. No. So, um, I guess in the cultural milieu, like there's a knowledge of rap battles, that concept, and I mean that early in my rap like discovery, I started seeking out more. So I'd go into, oh, okay. Now I've heard a lot of like rappers now, but everyone talks about Tupac, or everyone talks about Biggie. Let me dive into that. Early Eminem, like, and so I'd keep expanding. What are other avenues of, like, what are other um, subcultures within the hip hop world? And I remember just like being on YouTube and typing in, oh, rap battles is such a cool thing. And like my if you were to read my search menu, it would probably be like greatest rap battle, like just kind of very exaggerated. And the first ones that I would see it was like really bad quality, just like, oh, and like you couldn't really hear the bars. Like, okay, there's a lot of energy in this. This is exciting. And I stumbled into like this YouTube video of well, no. I stumbled, yeah, it was that one. But probably the first one was, I stumbled into this YouTube video of the ultimate World Rap Championship League and the ultimate battle of Thesaurus and Iron Solomon. And it was like the video was like super hyped up, kind of in the description. I was like, oh my gosh, these are the best two individuals in the rap battle world. And in that video,
Yo, that's big nifty. Can I just pause for a second? Because again, I'm talking to the people who kind of like threw this shit a little bit. So the fact that they wrote that hyped you up that much for that battle to watch it, and like it just
yeah. I mean, I maybe even through 8 Mile, kind of like that got me into like an understanding of potentially, but like I knew that like I hadn't looked up rap battles until then, but I looked it up, and that battle, Thesaurus, just got wiped up, like destroyed. And so so then from there I was like, oh wow, whoever wins this battle, I need to follow this guy. So then I like went into Iron Solomon, and he was just devouring, going through everyone every time he rapped. Like, I think the next one that I saw was him versus Suit and Tie. And every line that he said was so genius. He had this line that like, and it was like freestyle too, because he said in the previous round, Suit and Tie talked about Critical, the rapper Critical, and then he said, "Oh, you talked about Critical, but it ain't critical you're dissing. So I think that it's critical you listen. I'm gonna put your whole career in critical condition." Like, then he freestyled a whole thing about, the guy just mentioned critical, and then he like used it in this like 2 different puns about the word critical and rhyming critical condition, a 6-syllable rhyme scheme in a freestyle. It was just like, that's just one example of how like amazing Iron Solomon was. But it was very interesting to see Iron Solomon, because he kind of was breaking the mold of what other people were doing. Other people were battling like 6, 7, 8 times a day, and he was choosing his battles and going like one battle, like selecting them and writing for them and incorporating freestyles in this way. And he really trailblazed what modern day rap battles, kind of like, maybe that was like 2005, 6, 7, and like rap battles in 2009, like 8 was kind of a funny year. 9, 10, 11, whatever was like when things were really ramping up. And this is for me probably like 2010. It was like just incredible. But like, so he, like, he wasn't really freestyling. Another like amazing kind of revolutionary moment in you know, kind of trailblazing in the rap battle world was he when he battled Math, he started doing schemes, and his schemes were crazy. He had a whole
That's
scheme.
like the Matthew thing.
I mean, that's just a joke. Little
Right, right,
Matthew,
right,
because like Math would call other people. I think like he'd
right,
call
right.
them
Was that battle though?
little yeah, yeah, that battle. So that battle was like another kind of really pivotal moment in hip hop, in battle rap history, where like it was like probably one of the first times anyone had schemed, and he had an incredible scheme of on like different courses in school, and he was talking about like the different courses the whole time. Like then his like his closer was, now math is history, and like that like is a crazy one. And he had one where he was going through higher higher numbers, higher mathematics, and it was so interesting because that round they cut him off, and like they were like, oh, this is getting this. It was almost like it was over their heads of like, this isn't how people rap battle, and they cut him off in that round. And like I always wanted to know like what was in the rest of that rhyme scheme. Like he was going from 10 to 1, and like using kind of higher mathematics, using it like going down into it was, that one was like that battle was like really incredible. So I jumped into the Iron Solomon, and what was so incredible about him was he never lost the battle. He was always winning. um but then I like jumped into Thesaurus, and Thesaurus just is incredible. Unbelievable freestyler. He'd do 10-syllable freestyles like with jokes that was like completely impromptu, just based off of, you could see he'd riff because he was with Ilmac,
Right.
completely riffing where it was um like, oh,
No,
are
you're good.
we
You're
out
good. You're
again?
good. You're good. You're good. You're good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. And we got your
Thanks.
audio, so you don't even have to repeat it.
Anyway, so yeah, okay. Basically, Thesaurus, um, like just incredible in the fact that he like he was able to freestyle at a ridiculous level, impromptu, and that was like something that Iron Solomon didn't necessarily have. The battle that he did with against Thesaurus was like, it was unfair because Iron Solomon had written all of his rounds and kind of prepared, and Thesaurus was just like his fifth battle that day, and his rhymes were really good, but like there was a level difference. But anyway, so like
Yo, that's big fair that you acknowledge that, right?
getting
Like,
into rap battle, and at that time I'm just,
I just wanted to just say, yo, because that was really big that you acknowledge that, right? Like, some people might watch that
yeah,
battle and just be like, nah, Iron Solomon marked him point final. But you're almost like giving the props that, yo, in another frame of mind, maybe if it was battle one, maybe if, you know, it might have had a separate outcome or a more level playing field. Not to say that it would have changed history, but at least that, like, you're adding in the context of what happened here, why this was so impactful, and why, like, writing almost
right,
became more important and more standardized. I mean, actually, that had a lot to do
right,
with
yeah,
TV, but
no,
anyways.
yeah, and well, yeah, as freestyle, like the ceiling of freestyling probably doesn't get higher than Thesaurus. He's like he's incredible, but because that moment of the ceiling of freestyle does not come close to the potential of someone writing schemes and thinking up and having like perfectly timed jokes um, in rhythm, is just apples and oranges. Like it's just another level. So then it makes sense that from Iron things eventually evolve. And I had a great opportunity because all of this.
You're good.
Okay, yeah. All this content existed for all this content existed for a few years prior, and I was coming at it like in 2008 as the evolution. So I had endless content, endless, and I was able to see that history unfold,
So the
and
one
I
thing I
walked
can
through
just
with it. So I
like
was first
say
in the world.
is that 100% it was TV networks interfering with battle rap that really had a huger impact on writing than you would think, because there was stuff like BET and all these different shows popping up, and the producers of these shows would be
Yeah,
like, yo, we don't want your freestyles, you guys better come in with your writtens, just get, you know, and so it almost like, so you're
right,
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 these things happen, but
right.
like just at the same time as people are trying to create like a higher quality product, is there's a lower risk threshold with writtens. Not to say that people didn't run with it, but it kind of added a quality value because of what you're saying, but it was also just to reduce risk, because what happens if you're not on that one time but now you're live on TV and this, that, the next thing, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a whole added layer. I mean, I was totally sold because also like um, it, everything that I've already said about hip hop and everything that's so enamoring, the internal ideas. One, the level of creativity that's given credence and given kind of that's lauded in the battle rap world is just so much more. The density of language and everything is so much higher. The acceptance, deeply internal rhyme schemes and deeply creative schemes uh, only exists in rap battle communities, and as like kind of in that mindset where I was like, oh, there's parody, then there's hip hop. Once I met rap battle, I was like, okay, this trumps everything that I know about hip hop because um, on top of all of that, you're incorporating the art of theatrics. You're incorporating the art of live performance in a way that it's stand-up comedy where you have a full set and you cannot repeat that entire set that you spent years in, like you spent so much hours and hours developing and perfecting. You cannot repeat that set.
Yo, that's a crazy way to put it.
So I mean that element, yeah, that element of high standard performance, everything is memorized and only for this one performance. It's just the like the creativity of all creativities. And so yeah, I mean, I totally fell in love, and so I started going to the Montreal scene. Once I like I went through 2004. I devoured it. 2004, 2005. Then like things started moving into the grind time world, and going into the grind time world, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. This is, they're taking it to another level. There's this evolution, and then grind time split into King of the Dot. I'm like, wait a second, this is my backyard. And King of the Dot had a Montreal um, uh, division. So they had the Quebec division with Lo Pesci. So I started going to the events. I remember one time I went to the event, like the event, because I went, once I went to the events, it's not just about enjoying the event. I need to perform. I wanted to perform at the events. Like it wasn't just enough for me to to passively enjoy the art form. I always needed to be proactive in it. So I wanted to perform, but I was 15. And so like the venues that these were at were in clubs. I remember though the month before I was set to perform, because I was going for a few months, they carded me. And I was like, oh my God. And so like I got turned away because I'm 15 and it's in a bar. It was in Koi Lounge.
Mm.
And but anyway, so I performed the first time that my battle. Uh, I was like the first time the guy canceled, and then my second time that like I signed up, went up against who right now is like one of the best battlers in Ottawa. His name is Teddy KGB. Um, but yeah, I I I that was such like an incredible moment for me of
So you're
like
like 15
bringing
in Club Koi battling this guy.
yeah, Teddy KGB, who's, you know, he's a like he's he's probably like late 20s, maybe early 30, I don't know. Like, and one of the best. He's probably the best in Montreal at the time. I was like, if I could battle anyone, I want to battle him. And then Lopeshi signed me up for the battle, and it was funny. In the message of the battle, he said, "You're battling Ted Adler," and then for him, he said, "You're battling the guy who looks like Avatar, who like was frozen in the back of the battle against Ben." There's like one of the biggest battles of all time for like a few years was a 2-on-2 with Lopeshi, Bender, and Kid Twist and Po Rich, who are like Kid Twist and Po Rich were this tag team from the WRC days. They were incredible from Canada. They like Kid Twist was once had the title in KOTD. They were like two of the best, and Bender also had the title in KOTD. He was one of the best rhyme schemers. Like tore me a bit because it has like anti-Semitic connotations in it. But it was you turn Dr. Robert Oppenheimer, and his top squad of top advisors to side and compromise with all the Holocaust deniers and leave everyone in the motherland. Anyway, so that rhyme scheme was like known as like top 10 of all time, multi-syllabic rhyme schemes, and you just see me in the back of that like just like, whoa, what's happening? And also at that event, Iron Solomon was at that event. I was like, oh my, that whole event was just like one of the highlights of my life up until that point, where yeah, this 2-on-2 legendary clash with Iron Solomon there. There was like a funny moment at that event where my father, he always had this dream, like he loved Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan, he went to he when he was like, he'd go to Texas. My grandfather was a rabbi in Houston. He met like his mother kind of would like go to our Sabbath table, our Sabbath meal. And so like when my father met Bob Dylan, he was like, oh my gosh. And they kind of jokingly said, my grandfather's is Bob Dylan's like Southern rabbi. But when my father met him, he was like, oh my gosh. And he went over to him. He was at a bar, and he said, Bob Dylan, what are you doing with all these non-Jews? Why are you hanging out with all of them? So that was kind of like a big moment in my father's life. When I met Iron Solomon, he was out in the streets. Everyone was like smoking whatever. I went to him, I was like, Iron Solomon, what are you doing with all these non-Jews? I like relived that experience with my father. But anyways, that whole event, everything was just, it was like the highlight of my life up until that point. And then like I performed, I battled against Teddy KGB. I was scared out of my mind. Like I got through my rounds, but just like a deer in headlights. And then I don't know if you know Corey Sharon. Sharon, he's like a legend also in battle rap. He judged the battle. It was just like, ah. Oh. And then that night, I judged Cool Man Logan's battle against Natural Selection, and I think I gave my vote to Cool Man Logan.
Shout out Cool Man Logan.
So yeah, shout out Cool Man Logan. In that battle, like it was just the whole like being part of that world at 15, kind of entering into it, allowing this kid to to strut his creative wings and really like work on it. That to me was like really impactful. And yeah, we're still in high school, but yeah, I feel like my infatuation with battle rap is a very important part in my creative growth, because also that kind of, I felt connected to, okay, there's epic rap battles of history, but then I really connect to rap battles, and this is my way of using a Jewish, like being part of the rap battle world, but in a Jewish way, and that I could feel comfortable, because there was still that feeling in the rap battle world of, I don't want to make jokes about how this person's acting gay, or I don't want to make jokes about like swearing. In any of my lyrics, I never swear. There's a rap battler who also is a genius. Like, I love him so much. Isaac Knox, and he's like, one of his brand things was like incredible freestyler. He has this this freestyle show that he does at Disney, like an hour show like he does it 5 times a day, where he just freestyles, an amazing show. So Isaac Knox, to me, was also this, oh, you don't have to, and you don't have to, you can find your own brand within rap battle and just live up to it. Isaac Knox was an individual who like who crossed boundaries in not like allowing for status quo, like gang rhymes. There's he's escaping me right now, but he's all he's a redhead. He like, what's his name?
I don't know. I'm not sure how to identify a redhead bad rapper.
No, no worries, no worries. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, there's like a few people in the rap battle world. The Saga's another one who like also speaks from like Jesus loving and like religious place, and seeing people cross boundaries in brand. Oh my gosh, Shuffle T, like he's a stand-up comedian who's also just a genius rapper. And anyway, like, the world of rap battle, also the fact that it's all about branding yourself. It's all about embracing what your difference is and what you contribute. But it's so like, the people who are successful are so real and just so talented. That was another thing that like I really loved with rap battle, is you don't have to. There's a guy back in the day, Cheddar Cheese, and it's just completely such skinny arms. He looks like he's from Big Bang Theory completely, and he's just very talented and very funny, and he has a place in that world. There's a lot. Corey Sharon, he has Asperger's, and he kind of like, some of the like signs of Asperger's, like waving arms and different things like that. But he uses that as an advantage, and he embraces it in a way that's just so beautiful. Like there is within rap battle, and it was hard for me to find it. And it makes it much more challenging to be skilled at it, but then also to limit yourself with, oh, I'm not going to engage in this content. Iron Solomon has a whole thing about he never takes anything into racist territory. And it's funny because like he doesn't draw lines with a lot of things about like, sleeping with this guy, with his girlfriend, or a lot of his stuff is still edgy in different ways, but like he never would take it into racist. That was the line he drew. So where people can base all of their content with a line that they draw in the sand, all of that is the redhead guy. His name was Carter Deems. Anyway, it just it was bothering me. Anyway, yeah, and that there's space for all of these, the inclusions of all of these different kinds of voices, and all of like people who are extremely nerdy, and like they're really leaning in towards their nerdiness. Is super cool. And like in I don't know, and you have that also in just like music world and hip hop for sure, no question about it. But it's just like a complete, you know, like how America's like a melting pot and then Canada's like a mosaic. It's a mosaic for sure, the rap battle world, and yeah, it's there's in different countries and I love it. What
Yeah.
was challenging in high school was that I couldn't really share it with anyone, and it was like,
Can you elaborate on that? That is like, okay. So first of all, thank you. I mean, I'm gonna hope that we get a little Iron Solomon clip out of that, and then maybe we send it to Iron Solomon after, and he watches it. Who knows? Um, I'm, I can't promise anything, but I know I can DM him now. But like, um, the other part was like, yo, I recently got into loving battle rap, as in
yeah,
it was as recent as my dude hit me up and said, "You're interviewing Iron Solomon," and I'm like, "Who the fuck is Iron Solomon?" I swear, I'm like, who the fuck is this
who's
guy?
Iron Solomon?
I swear, I had no idea who Iron Solomon was. Never heard of this fucking
My
guy.
inspiration.
I know, and a lot of y'all were like, "Bro, how do you know?" And then he looks like me, bro. I look at this picture and I swear it's like me in 10 years. I'm like, what the fuck is this shit?
Oh
So
wow,
now I'm
yeah,
interviewing like me in 10 years and everybody knows this guy. So he already owns the look. I'm
yeah.
like, fuck that
Oh,
shit. But then I talked to him and he's
just
wonderful.
oh,
And so I actually watched like all of those
yeah,
battles recently in my research for him. And he does
yeah,
music and his story is incredible. And then he came back and did a part 2 with us because he's just wonderful like that. But for all of you out
yeah,
there, you should definitely like look into Iron Solomon's stuff. He's like sincerely incredible. Shout out Golden Jenny from Norway. Um, but like, so then
yeah,
I get into this culture. It's to the point where I subscribe to the URL app. I got to that point in life.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and I just watch them now as I talk to battle rappers and learn about their histories of battle rap and etc. I mean, to be fair, Flacco Bale was involved in Grand Tank East Coast, so it's cool to like have a guy that was there and being like involved in it and like worked with Poison
yeah,
Pen in them. So like, it's cool. But then you were like, it's just like you just did a 20-minute rant almost on battle rap being amazing, walking through like all your favorites, and to see that, that's really cool for me because I got like this like sort of context. I don't know all the names, but like just to watch your passion and how impactful the fact that you were like at 15 years old in Montreal's little dabbling with KOTD back then, judging a Cool Man Logan battle. Like what? Who the fuck is Rivir? You know, like this guy's incredible.
yeah, yeah,
And then to
yeah.
make it even more
Complete.
interesting, you're like, and I had to keep it all a secret. I couldn't tell anyone at school. What? Why?
Yeah. It felt very lonely. It felt very challenging to 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 have this world that felt a little secretive because I mean uh, it's it's inescapable. Hip hop already, you know, there's a little bit of like um, you know, I listen to the music, but like you can't. My parents can't really hear the words. They're rapping so fast or whatever. But like in a battle, like someone just says uh, like you know a homosexual slur just like very loudly or whatever. That's like that rings through my house, and then that coupled with the laughter and the daps that comes with it, um, it's something that you can't really hide. And at the same time, I can appreciate the creativity behind it and everything, like everything about it is that's such a clever way of calling this person gay, you know. So it's like it was very challenging from that perspective, but then also people like hip hop, people like what they heard on the radio, but this is a very niche subculture of that world that like I would tell my friends about it or whatever. They didn't know about it. They weren't into it, and so it was something that I enjoyed. I kept quiet, silent. I mean, even at that time, it was a little bit of like a YouTube subculture. It
That's facts,
the
though. No, that's big facts.
yeah the biggest battle at the time probably was like in the 100,000 range. there was one battle that like ever got to like 1 million, and it's like the legendary battle that like everyone talks about that transcended rap culture and everything, which is Loaded Lux versus Calico. That like went, that changed rap history, and that I think like squeaked by with 1 million. So yeah, and that was probably like, yeah, 2000 summer madness 6, probably like 2008, 2009, something like that. So yeah, I mean it was barely squeaking by as like, you know, viral or anything like that. And my the world that I was in wasn't really so privy to it at all. So yeah, um, it, it felt difficult because I loved it, and I just no one I knew was into it. So yeah, that was an interesting, but it was a world that I wanted to be a part of, because people that were in that world, in my mind, were at the pedestal of most genius like individuals that I've ever met. Like every their lyrics, everything about the um, the 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 cognitive, in like the intellectual um, grandiosity of what they were pulling off on just the multiple registers that they were speaking was mind-boggling. They were doing multiple things at the same time. And then you get into like Daylight, who is a performance artist at like,
Yeah.
and completely mastered how to speak to troll culture in a way where not only is he a performance artist, but he is a talented performance artist, and he's like very conceptual in his wordplay, and like everything that he does is just thought out in a creative way that I I want to be a part of. I want to enter into that world. Like people like Daylight, and he's just one name pushing the boundaries. People like Holiday Dawn, who just everything about his package is just so pristine and clean, and yeah, the
Fair enough.
multifacetedness of the world. Anyway,
So
yeah,
you're involved in
sorry.
battle rap. Like it's cool
Yeah,
though because like it is such a like you're part of it at 15. So I mean your
right.
passion for it is cool and giving the love back to it is just amazing. But
Yeah.
like so you're doing that. Are you battling more than once or was it just like you did the one battle and it just kind of ended there for a while?
So yeah, I mean, there were a few other battles that like uh, I don't know if you met Medi Meds. He he comes to some end of the week stuff.
I think I
Like
have him on Facebook, but I haven't met him.
I had like a whole battle prepared for him, like memorized everything, and then day of the event he didn't show up. I'm still bitter. But no, like there were a few of those, um, but things kind of like uh, sputtered a little bit with the Montreal division dissolving.
Right.
Um, yeah, and what's really cool is that like I got onto KOTD before they had like other channels. So like right now, the quality control that they have to be on the KOTD channel is so hard. um, like it's only people like battlers that they pay like $10,000 at least to battle, and who've like been in it for many years, and so up until last year when or like 2 years ago when I was kind of resurfacing, making my comeback into the battle rap world, because like for years I was like, oh, it's not in Montreal, then I guess there's nothing that I can do, and DMS didn't exist for a long time. And then I met a disciple, and he's like, you know, there's leagues like in Ottawa and stuff. Like, it's not very hard. And so that was a funny like and then I was like, oh yeah, I can just travel to Boston. I can just travel to Chicago. I can just, and so I started traveling and battle rapping again, and like really taking it like, oh, I don't have to be bound to where I am. I
When did you do
traveled.
that?
That was 2019. So just like after many years, my battle against I think 2010 or 2011 was my battle against Teddy KGB, and then 2019. So in between, I had a mentality of, oh, Montreal's division died. Also, like, that was around when I was really getting, like, basketball became a full-time job, and I was like a part-time student. Like, in my mind, I was training like 10, 12 hours a day, basketball. Um, and yeah, also my father got sick. There are a lot of different things that kind of like happened. But through that whole time, then I was a sideline battle rap fan until I came back in 2018, when DMS, they had like a university McGill versus Concordia event, and then I jumped in, and then I was like, oh yeah, this is what I like. I love battle rap, and through that time I was like with my teams and everything. I was always like doing rap battles, street battles, those types of things, but not in leagues and stuff. So that was
That Rivir battles on the internet. It's one of the few. If you type them into YouTube, it's one of the only things that comes up.
yeah. So no, yeah, definitely. In my journey, the rap battle world is near and dear to my heart, very, very much so. Um, but also around that time was when I was really starting to pick up like music.
Around which
When I
time?
went
I
to
was like
Dawson,
2000 times. Okay, cool.
yeah, 2011. I graduated 2011. So like when I went to Dawson, I I met like a lot of people through my team, and then uh, I started going to like to different clubs. I hung out at like the African Legacy Club, and it was just like such a great group of people, and we'd talk about you know, racism and different things. And when I was there, like there were a few people who were rappers that I linked up with, and they told me about this youth center in Cotonej, which is an amazing youth center called No Bad Sound. And they said you can book free sessions. And so I went with one of the guys there, D-Jazz, and I started like we would just go back and forth freestyling. And at that point, I'd been freestyling for like 4 years. I'd been developing it, so I was starting to like get confident in it. Um, and so I collaborated with D-Jazz a bit, and then I was going to No Bad Sound every week, and I'd write the song going into it, and record, like I'd make a song in the hour session. I'd go through beats. I'd write the song before I had the beat. I'd listen to beats, and whatever the beat was, then I'd mold my flow or whatever to fit the beat. And it was like these very efficient sessions where they had Dr. Mad. He's a great engineer, sound engineer, and it's a really incredible youth center where they have workshops all the time about money management and all sorts of opportunities to perform. And so I really developed as an artist going there. And like my first song was about internal conflicts, and it was like, conflicts, welcome to my daily life, conflicts, you think I'm a baby, right? Anyway, so then like one of my mistakes of that song, I said like cornflakes, and then like that, like Dr. Mad would take like some of the bloopers or whatever and put it at the end in the outro. He had like this style where it added like a fun-loving character to the songs, and then so he's like, oh, cornflakes, and I was like, my next song next week, I'm gonna come and I'm gonna write a song about eating cornflakes. so then that song was about cornflakes, and it was like a love song, like all I wanna do, yeah, is eat cornflakes with you. And like I go through the song like, I don't want to go on a date. I don't want to do any of these things. I just want to spend the night with you, like simple, have cornflakes, whatever. And then that I made that song. And then he's like, oh, you're talking about food. next time do like a song where you incorporate the 4 food groups. So then that was my prompt, and I just like each week I just go back and write a song just in the moment, uh, like, and it was that was when I felt a feeling of just such high, because I'd get the songs, I'd listen to my own music in a way where it wasn't me. Before, I'd make the beats very simply, and I wasn't good at it, and it wasn't great music, but I'd just go through beat tapes with him, pick a song, and in an hour, there was this creation that never existed in the world, and it was a full song, and it was amazing. It was just an unbelievable feeling. So I attribute a lot of my artist development and love for making music in a real way, where I was actually working with a sound engineer and developing my sound and everything with him, with through No Bad Sound Studios. And that's where I met, I don't know if you know other rappers in Montreal, Marley Kroll, Marley
I
C.
know the name, but I haven't met him.
Yeah, so we started scheming. He's just such a spirit. We'd scheme about like when we'd perform, and he said, "Okay, I walk in an astronaut suit," and then I start rapping in the astronaut suit. All of a sudden, I have a jetpack. I fly into the crowd. You know, like his mind is just big, bold. You know, wild. What's the craziest thing that you've ever seen? And just scheming with him, thinking about our crew. That to me was what I'd always sought out in artist collaborations, and I really think fondly of like the times when I just go back to his apartment, and he'd find a beat, and we're like, okay, let's make a song about this. What's the song about? Those types of things. Yeah. Anyway, No Bad Sound Studios was a pivotal part in my artist development, um, and I mean, yeah, just such fond memories of looking forward to going there. And it's really close to my house. Like, it's the studio is at the bottom of Côte de Neige, like right before Jean Talon.
Right.
So it's like a 10-minute walk from my house, and just yeah, definitely a great experiences there, and meeting a lot of the uptown artists, because like still in TMR, but that was like when I got to meet a lot of the Côte de Neige artists. Yeah, and yeah, no, No Bad Sound Studios, chapter 2, chapter 3.
No, it's important though because like it shows another. Well, firstly, I'm always up for talking about how youth centers impact people who go on to become big artists because I'm a firm believer that a youth center, especially one that creates an opportunity to link young people with people who do music and then give them opportunities to do shows and things like that. Like, there's a few of these youth centers across Montreal's history that greatly impact such like one location can impact like 1,000 people's lives. And sometimes all it takes is to go to like one session at one youth center to like go, oh, and have maybe
Wow.
that moment that you did, and then it puts you on your own journey. And a lot of people in Montreal have gone through them, so it's really cool for you to give love like that to it and to give it its props. And it's
Definitely, no Bad
such,
Sound Studios.
and it's like,
Yeah,
so you got your battle rapping, and then you're also, well, I mean, you were a battle rap fan, and then you just migrate hard into now I'm weekly banging out songs about cornflakes and shit, and just
yeah.
taking that skill set and that you'd been developing and a lot of those battle rap techniques, but bringing them back to music.
Yeah, it was so exhilarating just making music. It was such like such an incredible experience. And then yeah, this I recorded the song about like what we can read from rap. I recorded it there, and then and yeah, I would experiment with, oh, I could, what if I mix two different beats and then go back and forth between two beats in a song. And like Dr. Mad would just give me the space to explore. And it's like, oh, what about if we like pan right one take and then pan left the other take, and what does that sound like? And he really allowed me the space. I mean, I didn't have access to that kind of equipment or you know, even like even not knowing where to begin in the process, I'd explored with my own beats, or you know, I would take like clips from intros of songs and then loop them. I didn't know where, you know, I didn't know how to make beats or anything like so. So that I mean, definitely big props to No Bad Sound Studio. And then from there, I I, I was making a lot of music. But No Bad Sound Studio, they kind of ended at when you're 18. So you can't really go. I think I went until I was like 19, 20, 19. I'm still 18. Don't card me. Don't card me in the other direction. I didn't want them to card me when I was 15 at the club. No, I didn't want them to card me when I was 19. But anyway, yeah. So like at that point, I started to establish like, oh, I identify with the hip hop world. I'm a hip hop artist. Whenever I like with my basketball teams, I'd be making songs. When I'd be going to programs like in the Jewish community, I'd do a lot of like fellowships and different, and they'd have talent shows, and I'd be like, oh, I'm the rapper. I'm the, you know, I pull out like a song that I made about all the inside jokes, weaving them together in a rap song. So I was really starting to like take on that identity at that time. Once like I had tracks that weren't just my own concoctions, but had together like great beats, jazzy beats. Then I started like coming into myself, and then I I I perform. Oh, I performed at a show um, with my sister's friend, and like she organized the show, and at that show, I had this whole set that like, I mean, I always am very detail oriented and kind of multiple conceptual things going on in my rap battles. Um, I really love Daylight's performance art, and so I'd come into a rap battle and completely dressed in a costume, and then like as the battle progresses, I take off the costume, and there's like multiple levels to it, and then at the end of it, there's like a punchline that says, "Oh, you thought that this was a game show? Well, like you're the game show," kind of like, you know, anyway. I'm really like going into like very creative, deeply creative worlds. That's just how my mind works, and that's why I like rap battles, and that's why I like venues that allow for layered creativity, because I love it. But so I was doing this show where the whole show was this progression of this plane crash, but the plane crash was between the Jewish people and God, and it was this whole each between each song I had like these poems, and so my sister's friend, she saw that show, and she's this incredible pianist. She won an award for like under 18 pianist, classically trained. So unbelievable. She could conjure up a freestyled song with the best of them just in the moment. And she said, "Oh my gosh." Because like at the end of the show, I did like this like 10-minute freestyle. She's like, did you make up that whole freestyle in the moment? And so she's like, wow, I want to like create a collaboration with you. And I was so honored, because she's this incredible pianist, and she has this other friend who's a guitarist. So her name was Lily, another guitarist Zach, and they had a percussionist Gio. So together we created the name Zach Re, like from Rivir, Zach Re Lily Gios, sacrilegious. And so that was like our crew, and we would perform weekly at the. Oh no, we would train like 3-hour sessions of freestyling, and for me, I was just in heaven, because I get these impromptu beats where the whole time she's just killing it, and I could just go and we'd make like you said, you made like you made like a 7-song EP or something
Yeah.
yesterday. We'd make in the 3-hour sessions 20 songs, and she'd record the whole thing and send it to me in the Dropbox afterwards, and we just do that week to week, and then at the end we performed like a bit at the, like once we felt confident in ourselves at the Yellow Door Cafe, and that was like a really cool experience of taking freestyling and like actually legitimizing it as something, not that I would do as would walk to games or anything, but legitimizing it as I could perform this as a bit. And so we'd say here's a dictionary, choose a word, and then I'll read the definition and make like a whole track about that word. So that was like another kind of notch in my trajectory.
Man,
And
when I
then
listen to all the different things you do to challenge yourself to like evolve your game, it's pretty incredible. Like, I can see why Olivier is like, I'm picking Revere. And I'm like, fair. I respect that choice. But like, no, it's really like, I'm like, damn, it's like, you just get bored with everything and up the ante consistently and find new and more interesting ways to challenge yourself. Because keep in mind, you're going to school while you're doing all this.
right, yeah, academic all Canadian.
No, that's a lot. That's a pretty
Yeah,
big amount of
no,
accomplishments. So you're in the
yeah,
school
yeah, no,
and you're performing
yeah.
weekly.
So that was, uh, yeah. Well, we didn't perform weekly. We only performed
Oh, my bad.
like
Well, you jammed
yeah,
weekly
but
to like
we
build up
jammed
to.
built up to, yeah, yeah. But no. So that, I mean, yeah, that feeling of like, what's the new challenge? But then also, I feel like constantly this endless treasure trove of, not, I don't want to call it treasure trove, but just this endless amount of creative buildup that needs to be expressed somewhere, and it's almost compulsive, where I need an outlet. I need opportunities to challenge myself and to explore different stretch myself in creativity, uh, because it's just so visceral to my being.
Yeah, but like,
Um, and
Revere.
yeah,
I talked to
and all
a lot of people, and your story is just so riveting because of the ways that you innovate. You're like a multidisciplinary artist. Like, you just threw it in. Oh yeah, I also draw. You know, just out of nowhere. We didn't even talk about that because we couldn't talk about it yet because we're still running through the ongoing tangents of how you got bored and evolved into a more interesting artist. And like, I just want to just let you know that it's really incredible, and you really are like a mind that people should pay attention to. Like, bump that album, see what this dude actually did with it. You know what I mean? Like, cause like, it makes me excited to see what you're gonna do next. You know, with your life, like, cause you're young. You know, like,
yeah.
you're not even an old man yet or anything. You're just like, fuck that. I've already taken over the whole world, and I'm not even in my prime.
Thank you, thank you. I mean, yeah, for me, like kind of that feeling of sending out my flares, sending out that SOS, and it's like I just, I, for me, it's something that just builds up inside, and I love it. But I'm also searching for that, for for people in an environment where people love have like-minded or like-minded spirits, and who love that creative endeavor, and finding collaborations, and finding the opportunity to riff off of Lily was such an unbelievable opportunity. She's one of the best pianists. Like, she won the award of best pianist under 18 in Canada.
Right.
um and like, so that kind of stuff too is just, um to to collaborate and to find environments and other creative, like-minded creatives, is something that drives me, and that I feel very excited about. Yeah, and then like kind of progressing, I jumped into the like I made my great return to the rap battle world, and um,
This is like
and that
2019. Like we're jumping
was
ahead.
2018,
And
yeah.
in the middle of this, you're basically just going to school and doing your thing. And
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a lot, like a lot of, yeah, you know, a lot of things in life and different things. But yeah, basketball definitely also took a big space in all of that. Where, well, yeah,
you said you
I was,
traveled playing basketball. Like,
yeah,
how did you do that? Like, how did you get to a point where you're traveling to cool places around the world playing basketball?
Well, I played college ball through CJEP, through university. Um, and so like in the university level, you travel to the States, uh, yeah, you, we, you know, there's lots of funding in the university towards like their varsity team. And then also, uh, yeah, anyway, it was, that was definitely like, it took up a lot of my mind and a lot of my passion. I love basketball also for the creativity in it. Just when I would watch Dwayne Wade, the way he moved, Allen Iverson was a ballerina on the court. I'd go back and I'd try and I'd invent a move, and then I'd be like, oh wait, oh, Chris Paul just stole my dribble fake, and you know, constantly like that creative process. I funneled that energy a lot in basketball too. Um, and yeah, to kind of like continue to the music aspect, um, with the rap battle return, it was really exciting because that was also towards the end of my basketball career. Um, yeah, I like that the summer before I went to the, I don't know if you've heard of the Maccabi Games. It's
Yeah.
kind of, it's the third biggest sporting event in the world. Like there's the Olympics, then
Right.
there's the college games, international sporting event, then there's the Maccabi Games. So that was like always one of my dreams, uh, from a young age of being able to represent my country at the Maccabi Games. So I got to live that experience, and I was a bit at a bit of a crossroads between, should I take basketball professionally, or should I move towards a different path in life, towards becoming a rabbi, towards utilizing music. And it was like I could play professionally, but that would just be, it wouldn't be a smart financial decision. It would have been just purely for the love of the game. And like I at that point I developed a deep love of basketball. But I started saying like, okay, but also how, what are other career paths? If, like that will only last me till I'm 40 or something. I need to start developing myself professionally and being able to incorporate other elements to my life, like music that I feel so passionate about, and how do I meld those other worlds? And yeah, I mean, kind of another theme in all of this is there's that feeling of dissonance between not having these worlds connect, and me not being able to allow for that, me trying to bridge those gaps together, and use, like, oftentimes use music as that glue that bridges those gaps together. Bridge the
Right.
gap.
Yeah.
Bridge the gap.
I
Shout
love
out.
it. No, every time people say it, I get like this. Yeah, it's such a good feeling. But that's what it is. That's why we're doing this, is to talk to. Hey, you're in Montreal, so that's amazing. But you're also in like Harlem, whenever you're in either place, whatever. But it's also like, first of all, like a big thing we're trying to accomplish is to add perspective. Like, there's a lot of people who want to claim being the best about a thing or two. But like when we talk to the level of effort put in, and we look at the different journeys, and we try to kind of explore, I guess, how hard people try. Like, I had this fascinating conversation with Olivier Barreau where he was saying, in his perception, these are not my words, that like people don't really give it their all and throw themselves into it like it's their entire lifeblood, like
Right.
the raison d'être. And I mean, after 5 hours, I feel like he won the debate. And I felt very sad that I did not win that, because it's like being wrong about that subject isn't great. But when I talk to
Right.
you, it's like, nah, Revir's here. Revir's a passionate fellow who has definitely decided this is going to be what it is. But it took time to like get to a point where you're going to be able to meld all these universes together and pursue it. And even then, like, I'm not trying to like generalize for the scene. There's a lot of different people doing a lot of amazing things. That's my general stance on it. But it got me thinking about, you managed to clock so many hours performing and practicing
Yeah.
your craft and your skill set before you
Yeah.
even get to a point of rabbinical school, that like, how can somebody just come in at 28, as an example,
Mm.
just start rapping and actually think that they're going to come through and be the best guy in the city? Or even
Right.
when I was 25, I was a little arrogant when I came into the game and I thought I was the
Right.
best, but you were like technically already battle rapped by the time I come into the game.
Right. Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like, so it's important just to hear how much has been done here, but also just to see the different things people do to better themselves. And then hopefully
Right.
other people end up watching this and they can like internalize and be like, yo, if Revere's doing all of that, what am I doing on my game? What am I doing
Right.
on my craft? And I'm
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
And I love that passion. And I love, it's inspiring to me to see how hard you work, but also because you put in so much foundational effort when you were young, you don't have to learn as much now. You know, it's more like how can you challenge and evolve shit into this crazy, nifty, weird ideas that take what you've seen and go in the Revere direction with it. And
Right.
that's the
Yeah.
part where it's like truly like, damn, Revere's on some real artist shit. Like next level artist shit. So, okay, so you come back to battle rap. And what was where was the first battle when you come back to battle rap?
So it was at the Belmont, um, and Fizi, this guy kind of was the middleman between him and Fizi. They were doing this university rap battle event, and what was really cool for me was it was scheduled on the day of my last practice. So it was really at the end of my basketball career, where I was like, okay, I'm transitioning away from the basketball lifestyle, and now let me really go all in with music. And at the same time, like I just recorded um, my the 20-minute song about my relationship to basketball, that like the Tomastic disputation. Uh, so it was kind of like, even in my creative process, I was transitioning in myself, feeling like, okay, I've made, I've, I've turned the corner in basketball. I've resolved it. I've created some resolution in my life about it, and it has its termination. Let me transition into the rap battle world, and it was tough. It was tough. Um, uh, I, I felt very uh, kind of I put a lot of energy into the conceptual aspect of it, but I didn't have enough time to memorize it. And other people kind of at that event, it was, it wasn't professional rap battles, it was like university. They're kind of like reading from their phones. And I mean, that's like a huge no-no. I know, be like, knowing about the battle rap world, you can't read from your phone. But from my own perspective, there wasn't enough time for me to have gotten my bars out without that. So I figured, at the very least, they're gonna relish in like the complexity of my lines. um, and it didn't go so well. Basics was at that battle, and like the whole time, I was battling Bea Da Vinci, a female Filipina artist rapper. And the whole time, like, Basics was like, oh, and like, get served, Revere. um, and yeah, it was very hard, because like I really put a lot into the lyrics of it, and really was like proud of kind of the intricacy of the lyrics. But it was a great moment, in a learning moment Even if I would have gotten the lyrics off cleanly, there's a difference between the amount of layeredness that is acceptable in rap battle, in the rap battle culture, versus esoterica that becomes alienating. And so that was something that I still kind of struggle with a little bit, because I'm very internally referential, um, in my writing, in my lyrics, and so for me, the more layers that I can pack into a sentence, um, I can't think offhand, but there was one line that I had about, like an alien, what's it called, uh, with an A, anyway. Uh,
An alien with an A.
the alien, when they take someone,
Oh,
abduction, alien
okay,
abduction.
okay, okay. Abduction. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I had a line about alien abduction, and uh, and that line also referenced, because that week there was, it was the Area 22, so it referenced Area 22, alien abduction, like talking about, like, uh, the heightened, it was like during Trump, and like when he was like abducting aliens from Mexico, and like, and so I'm talking about Area 22, what's happening, alien abduction. Uh, there was about six different like internal puns that were going on, like on each word, like, and then at the end of it, uh, like I said, like I crop circles around you, I crop circles around you, but like that kind of level of intricacy is is really cool to analyze and to break down. It's just, it's completely inaccessible for an audience, and
Facts.
that was a very that was something that was very challenging for me, because when I hear Iron Solomon, when I hear other rappers who Iron Solomon did a whole thing where he was talking about different subjects in school, and then at the end of it, like he went through 12 different subjects in school in a span of 4 lines, and then ended it with a punchline, and the whole time he was rhyming, I'm like, there are so many registers that are going on at the same time. But still, if you break down that line, it's very clear what he's doing the whole way through. It's very, and I'm not alienating someone by having these multiple layers. And so that's kind of like a level of genius that I needed to kind of like discover and appreciate. Because for me, I was like, if I could pack in a third, oh, if I could pack in a fourth meaning, then let me go for it. Let me not hold myself back. And then, oh, actually, I could find a fifth and a sixth one. Oh, people are gonna love this. Uh, but what does alien abduction have to do with it? And it's just like at the end of it, it almost feels like I'm lost in my own head. But no, I got super into the details of it, and it
Yeah,
was
I'm
a good
gonna
learning
say that
experience. Also,
like what you just said just translates a lot into underground hip hop of the more
right,
backpacker variety.
right,
Where like I do the album reviews, right? And I went from like highly appreciating the writing of Triple Entendres to I don't know that I ever would listen to this shit. Like it's so
right.
great to like scholarly analyze, but then like how is
Yeah,
Hallelujah like one of the world's biggest songs? There's so
it's
few bars in that
clear.
shit.
Right,
It's just that word sung almost like like and then you get to like the subject of lyrical and how it just stops at hip hop when people debate it and like yo but isn't like rock music lyrical or
right.
isn't this so accessibility is huge if you're trying to like reach people and
Exactly. Yeah,
the fact that you can like recognize that being hyper complex isn't necessarily going to make people want to try as hard as you put into it to like analyze it. It's a huge lesson. Like basically Aesop Rock had to learn that lesson because his current
yeah,
music is mad accessible. and super
Right.
still like on point with his like complexity, but like you can rock to it in a way, whereas old shit you gotta bust out a dictionary to fucking understand some of the language he's using to get the connections. And you might
Right.
want to do that, but you also might be in your 30s and be grateful genius exists instead.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, I go back and forth between that feeling because a huge element of that creative output for me is it is an internal conversation. It's like in the song in the song that I had where I go through like my relationship with basketball. Um, I have uh, like a scheme that runs through the entire song where I slip in puns, kind of like it's almost like you wouldn't even notice until you're looking for it. With wordplay on every single country in Africa and every single team in the NBA, and like and kind of this symbolism behind it is that feeling of am I appropriating African culture by like really loving and being part of of uh, of the hip hop world, and like is this something that I'm uh, taking my own Jewish culture, I'm pulling it away from myself and gravitating towards this other culture that like isn't that isn't like it's almost like a colonialist appropriation of that culture. And then kind of like the rebuttal to it is that every NBA team, that black culture is something that like that is above that point in a way that we can all appreciate and value like all of the contributions to black culture and the hip hop culture um, through like the NBA is something that is branded that isn't like isn't black. It's above all of that, and it's something that like really shows progression through through a difficult history where on the other side there is great triumph. So like that for me, like that symbolism is so important to the song, and it's almost you can hear the entire song and not even hear it at all, or like kind of be like, oh, why did he just say Nigeria? But I was saying like deny jeering at, like where it's like, he was said deny jeering at, and then that was part of that sentence. But um, like that kind of it's still something that like I'm not fully set in on, where accessibility is so important, but there's something that's so powerful about allowing myself to dig deeper into those deeper resonances. But then kind of at the end of it, if you evaporate everything away and what you're left with is like a battle rap performance, you're connecting with a crowd in the moment. I can't alienate the crowd that I'm performing at and make them feel like they're dumb and make them feel like they're not part of the inside
Bro,
joke.
you just that's it. That's what people make it do. That's like what I mean,
Right.
as you see it in a lot of places, especially like I watch these Facebook battle like rap groups, not battle rap groups, but let's just say underground rappers competing with cipher verses and shits like that. And you're listening to these bars, and I'm like, the second they start bringing up sports players, I'm like, I just kind of zone out till they're done their sports player bar, cause
Right.
like,
Right.
dude, who the fuck like. I have to read paragraphs this long on
Right.
Genius to sort of make sense on why West Side Gun said that shit. And at one point, I just said, fuck that shit. If I don't get your bar, I don't get your bar.
Right.
That's not on me. I mean, it
Right.
is, but like, I'm fine with that. I don't get it. Let's move on. And like, that's what started happening is like, I mean, sometimes I do get that curiosity or like the fourth or fifth listen on some shit. I'll be like, yo, that's real good. But now you have to convince me to listen to some shit 4 or 5 times in the first
Right.
place to ever get to that point where like I'm gonna wanna like
Right.
pull out the dictionary to get to the bottom of your shit, you know? And that's like
Right. Right.
I feel like that's kind of like tapping into exactly what you're saying. So I love that you said it because it's so applicable. It even applies to software development. Okay, like it applies to everything.
Right. Yeah. No, like, like you could just take. I was listening to J. Cole today, and you could take like a line like "I flip" like exclamation points. That it doesn't take anyone's higher level of education to interpret, and yet like exclamation point, he's doing like a 5-syllable rhyme with it that like really feeds and sounds sonically is appealing throughout like the rest of the verse. But then just like you stop on that moment where he's talking about like making like how he flips money, or I didn't I haven't analyzed the line too much, but the fact that like it's a great pun.
So
It's a
speaking of that
great bar.
exact bar, I heard it the
Yeah,
one time because I did the album review, and
right,
now if I never like went back to that song again, because I don't even remember which one it's on, which is crazy, right? Like I've listened to this shit like 4 times. Okay,
right,
could not tell you what song that's on.
right,
And a lot of people, it might be like their total thing, but I feel like there was one song on that whole album that I really was like, I could re-listen to this and still get a further something out of it. So I find like a lot of the problem sometimes with bars like that too is, I mean, it's clever, but at the end of the day, it's like, congrats, my guy. Like I'm not feeling that like extra layer that makes like a bar like truly like, and this is just my taste, okay? I know
right,
people don't agree with me. I go back and forth with all kinds of people in this conversation, but like, I don't know, like that bar is clever, but it just kind of
right.
ends there, and it's just
Oh yeah,
clever, and then I'm
right,
like,
right,
I, and then but the thing is if you catch it the first time, then you're not as incentivized to almost go back. It's more like those bars where you don't catch it because it's so fucking seamless. And then you're
right.
like listening to this song that you just been bumping, and you're like, yo,
Oh
that's
yeah,
those to me are like the golden. I have no examples, but those are the golden ones, right?
right,
Like,
right,
whereas that example you gave, I thought about it too because I caught it my first listen right away, popped out
right,
at me, and then
right.
I'm like, okay, that's too accessible. I think that's where you start getting into too accessible.
uh, my point about it was that there's enough creativity for it to be enjoyable,
Mm,
and it's so accessible that it doesn't challenge anyone. And you're saying like it doesn't challenge enough, but it doesn't challenge anyone in a way that they feel alienated. So you're right that it could be like you take it to too much of an extreme where then it's boring. But for me, like for the other
but
extreme is something
But
that
to
I
be
grapple.
clear, you like also went at it from a completely different angle than I would. Yo, it's an exclamation point bar on a 6. You almost like brought the math in. And I appreciate that as like a writer who like writes. But
Right.
as a fan who fans, it's almost like I listened to the J. Cole project and I got left with the impression that J. Cole still really cares that like people don't know he's famous or something or whatever. Or
Right.
like he
Right.
makes a lot of, I know he charges 7 figures for a show now. Like he brought that up on 4 tracks. And so like these are my takeaways from this J. Cole project. I'm
Right.
like, I don't know. Like whereas Aesop Rock wrote this whole like album, I forgot what, it's something Spirit World or whatever. And it's kind of like him connecting with the spirit world of animals and shit. He does a bunch of peyote and crap, and he does these trips, and some of the songs are like journal entries of these trips, and all throughout it, it's layered with bars that you would eat up and get like way more than even I could appreciate. But like it has this like sonic replayability to it, where when I go back to it, I feel like there's vibes and energy. Now a lot of people are gonna be like, "Hold on, get the fuck out of here! You said Aesop Rock," but I'm just explaining. Like to me though, the
Right.
writing was just in such a way where like you couldn't get it the first listen, but it sounded so good I had to listen more. And
Right.
that to me is like really cool with it. But like J. Cole's like a message guy to me, like so it's kinda like I don't know. I feel like it was doing a lot of things at once.
Right. No. Interesting. No, yeah. I mean, I like what,
No, but your
Hills
point,
Drive.
just to be clear, yeah, Forest Hills Drive is a masterpiece.
Yeah, I
Masterpiece.
love Forest Hills Drive, and like Forest Hills Drive, that's when he really has this like where he really hits storytelling. His flow is just impeccable, and like he's really in his sweet spot of bearing wisdom with great bars in a way that like that he's it was a really impressive high of his career, but at no point like while he's telling stories he's never alienating you.
Mm.
That's so. J. Cole is like a good example of someone like Kendrick Lamar is more. There are points where you feel alienated through his
Do you?
literary references.
I've
Through
never.
his literary
I
references,
swear, like I don't feel that alien. Well, okay, but to be fair, okay, I get what you're saying. I did a lot of effort and had a cultural like understanding of a lot. Like I was
right,
fascinated enough by the way he wrote albums to do
right,
that work on it. But let's be
right,
real, like at most, to Pimp a Butterfly is where we go that hard with it. But that shit just has so many re-listenable songs that, regardless of even putting the content on, I find, regardless of what
right,
he's saying,
right,
at
right.
that level, he sucks you in a way where J. Cole is kind of the opposite. You're almost there for the content. Like, look, For Your Eyes Only is like, it's like a great story. It takes like storytelling so far with it, but
Right.
like, I don't know that many people really being like, "Yo, that song had jams," or like album.
Ooh.
Like, what
The what's the one about folding? I like that one.
is that on that one, or is it on the next one? Or I
It's
want
on
to.
For Your Eyes Only, I think.
Okay, yeah, okay, that one's a good track, but like, it's also like, it's an okay good track. It's like in the
Yeah,
realm
yeah,
of good tracks out there, like
yeah. I
it's
know for
like
sure, for
so
sure.
forgettable.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then KOD was made in 2 weeks and it shows, and
yeah,
then this one comes and the middle child in between, and you're like,
yeah.
like kudos to the Dreamville 3 project. That was ridiculous. But like in general, it's like, I don't know, he's so into the message. And look, when I was younger, I was like all about J. Cole. Like I was like, this
Yeah,
guy's like the guy. Listen to what he raps about,
yeah.
what he rap, and I'm like, okay. Now I'm older and I'm like, I don't even connect with this dude much. So it's like I don't get paid seven
Yeah.
figures for a show. I'm not
No,
the
yeah.
guy. It's like, okay. It almost feels like J. Cole isn't comfortable with his success, and that bothers
Right.
me.
Interesting. Like he needs to be back in the grind. He needs to be in the off season, training, going hard.
But it's
But
more like
like,
he needs me to care that he's good in a way that Eminem now needs me to care that he's. Eminem does not like the fact that his older fans don't like him and that it's his younger fans that carry him. And this shows
right.
in his music too. And it's like, bro,
Yeah,
I don't even want to listen to your music anymore. You went from being the rap god to the insecure dude. And that
right.
bothers me. And like, you broke the illusion of what I got into you for in the first place. And that kind of shit kind of matters a lot. Whereas like, I talked to Rivir, and it's like, I'm not trying to say you're better than Eminem or anything, but I would rather listen to your music at this juncture of my life. Honestly, listening to the way you blend symbolism and Jewish stories, and there's like this educational component, but you're like an NF track that like isn't just I'm the best,
Mm,
and it's really
respect.
cool. Not to
Thanks.
say that
Yeah.
that's all that NF raps about. NF just raps about himself, though. That's all he
Right.
does rap about is
Right.
himself and the industry. And I listened to your shit, and it came off a lot of that. Or Hobson just dropped his new track, and I'm like, this is a very whelming Hobson by number song. Like
Right.
people are gonna tell me
Welding.
it's not. It's not overwhelming. It's not underwhelming. It's just simply
Welding.
whelming. It is by the numbers. If that came on at a thing, I'd be like, it's all right, but it's not all right enough for me to want to go, what is that thing?
Right.
It's whelming.
Right.
It's like eating a banana.
Well,
I find bananas very whelming, so it's a thing, and I'm trying to bring in.
I like it. I like it. We gotta trademark that.
I'm working on it. Well, I feel like we need better Montreal-ish slang. That's just like Montreal.
Yeah.
Although to be fair, I got that from a guy in New York. So here me I am being another Montrealer stealing New York shit and appropriating it. But that's what it is. Um,
Hey,
so you do your rap battle, and you learn the big lesson on accessibility, and then what comes
right.
after that? Because that's 2019,
Well,
right? So we're coming up to these times.
right. Yeah. Well, 2018, but like,
Oh, my bad.
no, yeah. So 2018, big year for me. Like I mean, also the way that I'm kind of like very intense in like doing two, three, four different things at the same time, uh, with music. Like I did that also kind of with school, with basketball, where I was in engineering for 3 years. And then in 1 year I did like my whole I did the whole political science degree and added a minor in Israel studies. So like everything's like very fast track multiple things. Um,
Was like,
so then like that year at the same time I'm like, oh, basketball is this like 10 hour and maybe like 8 hour hole that I don't have anymore in my life. Like I need to fill it with other stuff. And so uh, at the beginning of that year, my sister, there's this organization in Montreal called well, that didn't exist in Montreal, but like organization in the Jewish community called the Moishe House. And my sister, well, they were doing ads in Montreal that like they want to build a Moishe House in Montreal, and there's like 120 around the world, but Montreal doesn't have it, and so they wanted to create a Moishe House in Montreal. So my sister, that's I've been saying my sister created the group of people to like start the house, and there was a little bit of like oh, is there going to be a weird dynamic in the house because we're siblings? But we worked through that stuff, and then in the end, she couldn't join the house, and I founded the Moishe House with three other
what's a
people.
Maisha house?
So it's a institution for the Jewish community. They try and target. The idea of it is that there's a lot of great stuff, programming and everything for Jewish university students, and like there's a lot of in the Jewish community a lot for them. And then when you have a family and you have like kids and everything, a lot of times those people are kind of covered through synagogue life, and like you take your kids to the synagogue and everything. But in between university and synagogue, there's like this moment where you kind of there isn't a lot of like support for people to try and like be part of the Jewish community. And to go to the synagogue, they kind of feel weird because like it's a lot of families, and they can't go to the university stuff because like you're like a young professional. So Mosh House really caters to that in between, and they basically they have a house. Um, we looked for a house in Montreal. We found like a great place close to downtown, and we'd run at that time 5 to 8 events a month. Um, and it's pretty popping. Like social events. Some of it could be like around the Jewish holiday, but not necessarily about the Jewish holiday. Just like an opportunity for people to meet. There are some like Jewish education events too. But at the Moishe House, what I started doing was I came up with an idea to like advertise for our events, but as like in advertising, I have a mic, as you can see. Um, so I'd record like a track, whatever, and then the advertisement would be like an original music video, and I was working on my video editing and all of those skills, doing a lot of that, and also song making. And for me, like in songwriting, I always could just come up with like content about different things, but I always needed a prompt, an idea that like attached me to it. And that was kind of like when at the beginning when we were talking about conflicts, and then the next one led to cornflakes. And if you give me a prompt, the guy said, "Oh, make a song about cornflakes." Boom! Like my mind starts going, and then like I'm like, "Oh, how do I make cornflakes interesting? Oh, maybe it's about like I want to date a girl, but I don't want all the pressures of going on like dates and dressing up and being fancy and all of that. I want to talk about just like how have a casual date with you where it's just me, you, cornflakes, and a good night, and like and so that like it's like, okay, I had a concept, now I created a whole idea around it just off of like the idea of like make a song about cornflakes. So I always needed like a prompt, but so then like I harnessed Moisha House as an opportunity of like, oh, we're doing an event about like wine. So let me do like a reggae track where it's like wine for me, wine for me. It's a Moisha evening, like kind of like go into whatever the prompt is, whatever those things are, to work on it. It kind of like to be directed in that. And so I mean, that was an amazing opportunity in my music career, where I was able to like I had it kind of doubled, where every time I'd make a music video, people would share it and everything, because not necessarily for the song, but because they were sharing the event. And then it kind of like I created this like small following in the Montreal community, because people were like, oh, that's so cool that you made a song about this apple picking event, or you made a song about, and then it kind of like doubled, where it created success for Moisha House, because a lot more people started getting interested and intrigued by it and everything like that. At the same time, it was like this a wonderful opportunity for me, like to develop and think about my music and all of that. So yeah, no, that was like a wonderful time in my life. And like also what was really cool that we did was like we created albums. So we had like a retreat, and then we made like an album in the retreat, and we made albums about like those events. And then it became this thing where people were like listening to the albums, and the albums brought them nostalgia to the events, and it like really became this way of creating bonds in the community that were like unspoken bonds in the community that were like it felt amazing to use the idea of like how music can connect people in this way, that there's a purpose with it. And that was another moment in my life where I realized there's an opportunity with music to make people feel good. Like there's something that's unspeakable, like a wonderful joy of making a song about an individual. Like, and we had an event about an individual, and like to make a song about that person, like and make the title of the song that person's name. Like it does something for people. And like that was like a really great way of honoring. It was for me, like if I'm making music and it's about like the NF mode of, oh, this is me, oh, look at me, then it doesn't feel authentic. But if I'm making music about other people and like kind of bigging them up and elevating them in the community, that kind of feeling is that's how you elevate other people. It's exactly what you're doing with this platform, with Behind the Suit.
Definitely
Like,
trying to do that. Yes.
yeah, you're here, and you're putting all this incredible work into the Montreal community. But in doing this work, at the same time, Montreal is being elevated, and it's like your work is not just goes beyond your own reach. You're helping flourish the entire scene.
That is a huge part of what we're trying to do here, and also just to put it online,
Incredible.
because we suck
Yeah.
at the internet. A little bit. I did want to ask though about like your current project because I want to make sure that we get that in, and that we
Oh,
promote that like properly a little bit. And if you could just tell us a bit of the story of what you're up to with this project and this like
okay,
48
yeah, yeah.
track monstrosity that you've created and all of this.
Oh, for sure, for sure. How are we on time?
We're alright. I would say like within a half hour. It is
Okay,
really hot. It is like I'm
okay,
sitting here this whole interview going, oh shit, oh shit, the summer is now here. But no,
okay.
but like I'd
Yeah.
say like if not to say like rush it, but I just also don't want to get to a point where like 30, 40 minutes comes and we just didn't do it. Was the other
Oh,
part
for
of it
sure.
because
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is possible once we pass 10
Totally.
o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah. No, because there's also, the whole end of the week connection. I
I
mean,
mean, and just keep in
there's
mind,
so much.
Revere. This is just the first one. Usually, when
Oh,
people are able to go past 3 hours, it just means that you can go past 3 hours. I mean, we could just spend an hour and a half talking about battle rappers next time. You know, like,
for sure.
but that's the kind of person you are. That's like when you did that, it's like, psh, of course, Revere's getting a part two one day. Of course, like,
Hey, hey,
absolutely.
yeah.
So like, but that's why I feel like the most important thing then, rather than your story, is to make sure we plug your album proper. And I feel like you're gonna take 30 minutes to break that shit down. That's why I'm like,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure. No, no, for sure. So, I mean, there's the buildup of the project, and then also what I'm doing now is really perfect towards. I'm really excited about this next leg of my journey, and everything that I've come from, everything that I've built up, really has led me to this process. So, at the beginning of quarantine, I'd already been in discussion with my sister. My sister, she just started a rabbinic school last year, and it's really innovative because especially in the religious world, there aren't a lot of female rabbis. So she started like one of the first religious. The school started 10 years ago. Uh, Religious uh, um, uh, rabbinic school that allows women to also be rabbis, and so she started, and we were talking like, okay, how do we develop our voice as rabbis? I mean, we don't want to like be, because I started this year too, and we don't want to be graduated and then trying to develop our voice, graduated and then looking for congregations and stuff to like, oh, I have a lot of potential, but like I haven't done anything yet. So we were, thinking about like using these 4 years that we're in school now. It's almost like another degree. Using this time to develop our voice, our artistry, and so we came up with this idea to each week there's 48 sections in the Torah throughout the year that they kind of each week there's a different one that we read, to go through each of those sections and to write a sermon about it. And it started off with just my sister and I, and then my father, he's also a rabbi, um, and he got sick about 10 years ago, so it's like very inspiring also when he's able to write and to produce stuff, because like his congregation is still like very in support of him and like loves his wisdom, but also he's a quadriplegic where he's incapacitated kind of like from neck down for the most part. He has very minimal movement in his arms, and like his voice is like 15% lung capacity. So like despite all of that, everything that he's able to produce and do is just very inspiring. So we like definitely we wanted to edge of innovation. So we came up with an idea of like, how do we breathe life into this art of interpretation, is by combining those sermons with art. And so my father, he's a poet. He's been a poet for 50 years. I don't know if you know, during the beatnik period in New York, um, John Ashbery. He was a student. He was in John Ashbery's private seminar, where like he for graduate seminar at Brooklyn College. And so my father's like, he's been a rabbi and a poet for much of his career. And I mean, that's also been an inspiration for like my own creative pursuit, is that my father's very verbose, very, he speaks in prose and poetry. And I've always wanted to kind of emulate that aspect of him. So my father, for each of these sermons that one of the three of us would write, my father would add a poem, write a poem kind of in reaction to, inspired by that sermon. And my sister would make an art piece, also kind of where it like brings out symbols from that sermon, symbols from that speech. And then I would make a song. And so we like that became a weekly endeavor. And at first there can be apprehension of, is that a sustainable model? Because we're like, it's for creative, deeply creative outputs that we need to produce on a weekly basis. But it's also the language that we've developed for many years. My father's been a poet for 50 years, and my sister, she does a lot of art, and I've been making album after album constantly. So it's something that like I felt confident in our ability, but it was still a bit of a stretch, and like we needed to really hunker in and push ourselves to do. But at the same time, in that process, I was like, okay, we have this really innovative project and this concept, but we should look towards like the Jewish community to find opportunities to fund it, to like that. I don't just make songs without getting them mixed and mastered and putting it out in a way that's pristine, and especially that like if you're branding yourself as like putting out a project and you're putting out quantity, you're putting out a lot of something, and you don't get it polished, then people will give it like 30-second listen and listen. Like the quality is the baseline. It doesn't matter how creative and how interesting and how unsustainable it is to imagine like how you're able to accomplish something. The quality is the package that it's in, and like that's the first thing. So it was very important for me to like be able to seek out in the Jewish community, but also it's something that's valuable to the Jewish community because it's this innovative way of teaching Torah, expressing it in a way that like has multiple conversations going on at the same time. There's a poetic access point. There's an access point through just music, and like you don't have to read the 5-page sermon. If you just listen to the song, you can kind of get it, you can vibe to it and enjoy it for the aesthetic purposes of the song, or like a picture with symbols. It makes it very accessible in many different ways. So that being said, we worked on the project, and like also I sought out from the Montreal Jewish Museum. They were very pivotal in supporting the mixing and mastering of the music. I did a fellowship in high school called the Bronfman Youth Fellowship, and they supported also, they contributed to that. There's another institution in New York, which is very they love Jewish stuff and creativity and arts, and they're very intellectual. So kind of like different ways of approaching biblical texts, they're very up for, and so we also got a micro grant in support from them. So yeah, there was a component of, okay, we're in it for like, we have to do week by week by week, but then also looking out into, oh, how do we take this to a quality and a level that like we can really look back on and be proud of, that it's something more than just like a song that my father's putting on his radio show, but it's something that I can like I can put into like like you review albums, and to like it's not just in the Jewish world, but like try and feel proud of like something to present to an individual of
Mm.
your esteem, that kind of stuff.
I don't want to act like I'm a special person just to put it out there, but I get where you're coming from. Um,
Yeah,
nah, the quality matters to a degree. I mean, I hear what you're saying. This is an eternal debate, but with the goal of being able to have something that lasts over time, like for an album, I do think that like the highest possible level of quality you can attain is what you should aim for.
right, right, yeah,
And a lot
yeah,
of my like arguments against quality are often not like you shouldn't try to be the best ever. It's more if you don't have the means to achieve the 10 on 10, take the 8 on 10 instead of the 0 on 10, which is kind of what you were doing with your dad's radio show back in the day. But for a lot of
exactly,
people, they're not at that place where you're at now, but they're still at the dad's radio show version of their career where I'm like, I mean, you could wait for perfection or you could
right,
get the ball rolling and create the opportunities cuz like by being an actively producing artist, like as an example, your Moisha House adverts, this played into probably other people looking at you and going, "Oh, he about that." You know, like
right,
all of these things create a portfolio and a package, and it might be the most mundane or smallest moments that you catalog or document or produce for that turn into the greater opportunities that you face later on. So
right,
because you have the opportunity to achieve this and you were able to project manage it to effectiveness and you set the quality standards that you felt were important, but also that you're trying to attach a bigger purpose to it, right? You're trying to create educational content for your people with regards to teaching them sermons via art. That
right,
goal is kind of already going to have some barriers where quality is going to make your life a lot easier. Whereas
right,
a lot of other people's goals may not face those same barriers.
right. Yeah, no, definitely. Something like that I want all listeners to hear is like us in Canada, we're so fortunate that there's like a government that supports and that wants artists to like to create and to produce. Um, some I mean I haven't received anything yet, but uh, I applied for the Canada Council grant, which is usually very challenging to even get a profile accepted. Um, they've opened up to early career artists, and I applied for for like a grant from the Canada Council that like it's unbelievable support that that they're willing to put into, and they've recently just injected an extra $300 million into like supporting artists and increasing the pool of people that are able to receive Canada Council grants. That like people should really be applying and jumping on that because it's just an incredible opportunity that Canada values its arts, and it's there, it's available. It's still challenging and it's still highly competitive, but that's like a huge opportunity that people should be looking at. And like there are micro grants, like a lot of these projects that are being funded. There are like institutions and stuff with kind of within the niche that like I'm creating art, I'm creating music for the Jewish community, and then like looking within the Jewish community. But I believe in other communities, in Indian communities, in Filipino communities, like that there is organizations that are trying to like support their artists. For me, I would never have like even felt that immense rush of making music if it weren't for the incredible support of No Bad Sound Studio, and finding like those opportunities of people who are investing in youth, investing in young artists. It's very helpful. I urge artists to look for those types of opportunities because I mean for the work that I'm doing, I don't have the financial means to really be able to support that vision, but being able to like go from an 8 on 10 to 9 on 10 can come from being very proactive in looking out towards what organizations and what micro grants are available, and to reach out to find those. Um,
No,
yeah,
it's really good knowledge, especially the fact that like anybody in Canada can go look into that, and a lot
yeah,
of us don't look into the opportunities. Now, why that's significant is for English Montrealers. Yo, you're not getting that Quebec grant money. It's just not
right.
happening. So at least there's a bit more money in the Canadian pool.
In the Canada Council, there's there's like an extra push for English minorities in Quebec and French minorities in the rest of Canada. So there's
That's
actually,
big.
yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna look into that personally because I'm like, yo,
yeah,
wait a second. That
yeah,
could
yeah,
that could be kind of beneficial. Um,
right, right.
but that
No, yeah, it's it's definitely like worth looking into, and like dreams are possible through being very proactive in that process of seeing what's out there and going for it.
honestly,
Um, yeah, no,
I think
yeah,
it's just cool that you're sharing your whole story like this. I'm sorry if I'm off, dude. It's like the first time it's been this hot in the room and this stuffy, and I'm like, holy shit, it's been long. But I don't want that to be like not reflective of the reality of like your story is really cool, and just the fact that like like you're studying to be a rabbi, which effectively means that you want to be a community leader, and
right,
everything you're doing here is trying to like give love to things like there's not a lot of people that take 20 minutes out of their own interview to just talk about why they love other people,
mm,
right? Like that's noteworthy to me. And I mean, you didn't just do it to like clickbait, blah. No, you were just like, you know what? People need to know Iron Solomon's wonderful, and you just ran with it. And then
right,
like time passed, and I'm like, yo, he hasn't stopped. Like, if I don't stop him, he might just like run this for an hour, just
right,
excited.
right,
And like that just raw passion and desire to like pursue every one of your passions, like just a la max, find the opportunities. Like, you're 15 competing at Club Koi. Koi doesn't even
yeah,
exist anymore. Like when you say Koi, it's like if you know, you know.
yeah,
And like
right,
that
right.
whole like universe comes from this attitude that is really admirable that you bring to the table. And it just
Thank you,
shows in the quality of your work. And everything that you're doing is you basically branch out to the next tier of your world. So,
thank you.
so what are you doing after this series of albums drops?
Oh my gosh, that's the big thing that I've been holding for this whole interview. So with this project, I've been developing it and kind of piloting this idea of combining art and Torah and Judaism, and like bringing bringing bridging those gaps um, together. Um, but the next step of it, something that I loved, was that this was an opportunity for me to be impassioned by this creative process, but it was insular. It was me projecting this outwards, and like you said, there's aspects of it where it's educational, and it's not just like a selfish pursuit, but it still remained my father, my sister. The title of it, of this project, is called Bitzalel Koli. Bitzalel was like the artisan of the temple, and Koli means like in my voice. And the idea of it is like the blueprints of the ancient temple from like 2,000 years ago. The blueprints of it were created from this artisan of the past, but it's only like demonstrated through the future and through like our individual voices, and not something that's like fossilized in history, but revitalized through art and through interpretation. That's the concept, but also it's kind of like a play on words, because my youngest sister's name is Salel Koli, her middle name, and so it's kind of like this project is this nepotistic sister, father, family art project that's like very internal and kind of that same thing of inaccessible because it's this internal dialogue. And what I took this course this year, what that was about, how do you not be like a lone wolf creating creative works and doing like within yourself, but how do you, as a rabbi, the goal is to serve people and to empower, elevate other people. So I'm launching this project, which is based off of Bitzalel Koli, but it's called the Amen Institute. And Amen stands for art, music, education, neshama, which in Hebrew means soul. And so the Amen Institute, it brings rabbis and artists together, visual artists together, where they're going to be studying like in the same way that like we would write a sermon. I created this fellowship for rabbis that they would write a sermon and study those ideas with an artist, and then have an artist who like it doesn't necessarily come from like a religious background, like an artist who happens to be Jewish, not like someone who like necessarily puts, but like very, very talented artist, to try and subvert the rabbi's understanding of that text and make them rethink it by having this communal dialogue with one
Yo,
another.
I would fucking jump on that. That sounds like
Yeah.
the littiest shit a rabbi's ever pitched me.
Yeah. And it's the idea is that from that, the artist will be inspired by like this, by kind of the rabbi teaching them, but fully like take this knowledge and create whatever art you want from it, but like use it as inspiration. And then the artist comes and says, okay, now let me teach the rabbi and teach them my interpretation, and come at it like using their art as a way to teach the rabbi. And then the rabbi writes a sermon, like scrap everything he knows, writes a sermon based off of this interaction, and then repeat that for like every week of the year. And then at the same time, I'm gonna be like, I'm creating this institution, and I'm gonna be present and making songs about each of these art pieces. But now it's another rabbi's sermon, it's another artist's art piece, and I'm kind of like promoting them as much as possible. And something, so this innovative course that I took, I interviewed different people, you were one of them, and I was really listening for what are elements of pain, what are things that like that artists who are Jewish kind of feel like is missing from their feeling of Judaism. And what I felt with a lot of them is Judaism at its base is so creative and has all of these opportunities for artists to latch onto, and to kind of the spiritual component of it makes so much sense. But Jewish institutions a lot of the time, especially synagogues and a lot of those worlds, are exclusive and don't allow artists to like to use that to harness their own creativity, and to empower them to be like bastions of wisdom, and to spread that wisdom like in the centerfold of communities, in the center of the community, to allow artists to be like almost a rabbi voice giving a speech, but through their art and through that canal. So what I'm doing is I'm partnering with synagogues around the world, around North America, where each week synagogues, they have like a weekly newsletter. And so I'm gonna have like that each week that these artists are making these art pieces. I'm gonna have the Jewish Artist of the Week, where there's gonna be a bio about that artist. They're gonna have a blurb about like this art piece and a picture of this art piece that they've done. And like I'm spreading it to at least one in every state and province. I don't know about the territories, but there's synagogues in every province, and like really trying to have that in itself is partnering with 60 synagogues. But like right now we're in 5 states across 8 synagogues. And we're like, I'm reaching out every day to like 10, 20, just trying to expand it as much as possible, where each of these synagogues center artists and have like these Jewish artists of the week, where this initiative isn't like listen to me and listen to my music, but look at all this incredible art, and like all these people, bring them back to the centers of Jewish community and Jewish life, and make them feel empowered and integrate their wisdom. So that's kind of like the idea of the project. But then also there's like multiple things that we're going to host artist retreats with musicians and artists, like, because like I did an artist retreat before uh, where we made an album like over the course of the weekend, and I brought in I don't know if you know Urban Logics.
Yeah.
Big legend in the city. He was incredible. I don't Giuini, different musicians in Montreal, and like had them do workshops, and then we created art together, and we made music, and it was like such a lovely experience. So that's going to be a
I
component.
remember Logix actually was telling me about participating in that, like
Oh
beforehand.
wow.
He was like
Wow, wow, wow.
excited for that shit. Like he didn't tell
You,
me like it was you or anything,
right.
but Gase, he was like we talked for a while. Like we had these long
Wow.
conversations and whatnot, and
Yeah.
I was doing album reviews for Sovereign Music, so like we
Oh,
were chit
nice.
chatting and shit. But I
Yeah.
remember him telling me about that, and I was going, I want to do a fucking workshop. How the fuck do people keep doing fucking workshops? Like it's such a cool
Yeah.
thing to do, to like set
Oh,
up, to create, dude. Like that's just big props.
fabulous. It was unbelievable. And people, there was an individual who came in and he was like, I don't like the guns in rap or whatever. And then Urban Logics just broke down the history of hip hop and everything. And by the end of it, he was like, we had this concert at the end that, like, of the whole thing. He's like, can I try and freestyle? And he's this elderly man, and it was such a beautiful moment where he just opened up to the receptivity of the potential. And then afterwards he was like drawn in. He said, you have to make a song, Rivir, about anti-Semitism, and like use the power of hip-hop as a voice for it. So I made a song for him about anti-Semitism. But it was just like that moment where he came from such a skeptical place, and it just Urban Logic's passion and skill, and it was such a beautiful moment. But yeah, so in the Amen Institute, we're going to have retreats. We're having like weekly, monthly Zoom sessions where all of the artists can just share a space and like create art together and meet each other, because like every artist is just going to do one week, but this allows it to be like more community oriented. And at the end of the year, we're going to have like a big virtual art exhibition where each of the pieces throughout the year, it's going to be like a 2-day event. Each of the pieces throughout the year, they're going to be able to present, and you can kind of pick between which breakout room you want to go to like hear their presentation. And they're going to like present their art, and also have it as like an auction where they can actually sell their art if they choose to, and sell their art, where it's not just an opportunity for like them to promote their art and to like be centered in Jewish community all around, but also that like this art piece can be, they can have this large art exhibition with thousands of people at this art exhibition, because it's going to be promoted in hundreds of synagogues throughout the year. And like that opportunity is going to allow the promotion of this artist, and then allow for like hopefully like a nice auction where they're able to sell their art and
That's
present
definitely
their wisdom.
it's definitely an innovative approach, and like it sounds like the start of something pretty big, and definitely a way to infuse your love of everything you do into your community and revitalize some of the acquisition marketing tactics used by the greater community to convince folk like me to show up. Because that
Right.
is one of the first times, just for any of your people that may watch this, as a Jewish person here who is not the biggest fan of approaching the community. It's not the dislike of the community, it's just, like you said a bit, it's not accessible. You feel weird. So, yo, if I can show up and at least rap some shit, motherfuckers will look at me and be like, at least this dude can rap some shit about whatever's. And it
Right.
gives me that, like, entry point to break the ice with like a bunch of strangers that I would otherwise have no reason to approach on some shy shit for real. But now it's
Right.
like I busted that track, and I know how that works at a show. All of a sudden, the whole room wants to talk to you after you fucking finish your set, when before maybe they didn't even look at you, right? And it would
Right.
have that kind of like, especially for artists, if you're trying to attract them, that like social lubricant that would help most of us who are either super social or super antisocial feel like integrated into that like community. So it's a really cool initiative.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm so passionate about it, and like I'm meeting with synagogues and meeting with partners every day to like really make it grow, and like kind of reaching out to like bigger grants that are like trying to, grants that are help seed funding for like a Jewish nonprofit. That kind
Right.
of thing is very different than what I was able to for this like family art project. It's kind of like much more insular, but now like I'm really trying to
Yeah, you're
like,
going to the big leagues.
yeah, not settle for like how do I take what I've already done and everything that I've learned and like elevate it to kind of what's the next level,
I
what's the
mean,
new challenge,
I love
how
it.
do I challenge myself even more, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And I love the fact that your like end result is how can I make the world a better place via my skill set, which is dope,
Thank
which is super dope, dude. Like all things considered, I'm gonna keep my eye on that for real because like it's actually super interesting. It's the type of shit like yo, my crossroad is all about yo, give me that random topic and force me to rap a little bit.
Right.
You know, like so I'm already on that wavelength a little bit, and just in general, from the workshops to all of it, these are things that I have in my pipeline in my mind. Like how can I? Because I like just independent of you saying that, like I was like, yo, those are great community building things. Like how do like
Right.
20 people go and make an album? You all have a bond for the rest of your lives. You know,
Right.
now you're
Yeah.
more emboldened to like invest heavier together to build even bigger and better things, which is
Yeah.
like I think we can do it really small scale and at home, but we need to learn how to upscale it to bigger and cooler and specialer
Yeah.
endeavors that involve bigger and
Yeah.
more people. So just to see you doing that in your world is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's so gratifying when like from those retreats, people stay lifelong friends, and like people are still messaging, oh, that person, Jeremy, and like intergenerational connections and interdenominational, like just all different intersections of people's sexual orientation, genders, everything is like all of those spaces create like there's equilibrium and there's space for all of those voices in creative space, in when people are able to voice their and express themselves through art, through conversation, through retreats, through experience. So yeah, I'm very excited about this opportunity to serve other people and to kind of, I feel like the rabbinate is all about people work, and there's this element of God and like making things divine, but like at the root of it, it's taking these big concepts and allowing people, human beings, to connect with other human beings.
Mm, I like it all. I like that you made that great. I would love to keep this going, but like honestly, I gotta move on with it. Not to be rude, it's just this was like it was a lot, but I gotta eat, and it, sometimes
Oh
the
no.
tummy kicks in and shit. I mean to end it so abruptly like that. I'm just like it's 10:31, and I'm like I want to keep running it. I like this Rivir. I think this is excellent content, but we've hit the ends of my limitations on this extra episode because of my scheduling blunder, which was all on me. So here we are. We ran it, and I appreciate you. Thank you all for watching this too. Thank you, Revere, for doing this. The Bandcamp's linked below in the video, so everyone's gonna be able to see that. Your Insta's there too. Basically, yeah, it was delightful. I think what's really cool about doing this is it gives me the opportunity to see where people's hearts and ambitions and all of it is, and it's cool to just see where everything in your world is aligned, just on all the levels of it, and to be able to show people that kind of a snapshot of who you are like that is just my pleasure, you know, like that's cool. So yeah,
Yeah.
thank y'all for watching this in the future. For those that weren't here in the live at all, like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Special thanks to the patrons: is Milgan Amsey, Chris Pratt, Jonathan Barnes, DJ Black, Kirk, Linda Williams, Scribble. The dope support what we do. Patreon.com/behind that suit, all that good stuff. On that note, I totally appreciate all of you again one more time. So live long and prosper, everyone. And then, yeah. Take care, everyone.